In the quiet elegance of Greystone Hall, a bowl of soup becomes a weapon of betrayal. Eleanor Grayson dies in agony, poisoned by strychnine meant for her charming husband Philip. Or so he claims, but in the flickering light of Miss Jane Marple's St. Mary Mead cottage, the Tuesday night club unravels a chilling truth. Was it the nervous maid, the loyal butler, or the alluring widow Clara Wentworth? Or did Philip, with a barrister's cunning, orchestrate the perfect murder for love and fortune? Every glance, every pause hides a secret, until Miss Marple's sharp eyes reveal the killer's hand. Welcome to the poisoned supper, where trust is deadly and truth cuts deep. Chapter 1. The Gathering at St. Mary Mead. The late autumn dusk settled over St. Mary Mead, wrapping the village in a soft haze as the lights of Miss Jane Marple's cottage glowed warmly against the chill. Inside her drawing room, the air was fragrant with the scent of burning logs and the faint perfume of dried lavender. A small, eclectic group had gathered for the latest meeting of the Tuesday night club, a peculiar assembly bound by their shared delight in unravelling mysteries. The fire cast flickering shadows on the chintz curtains, and the soft clink of teacups punctuated the quiet anticipation. Miss Marple sat in her favourite armchair, a delicate figure in a black lace cap, her knitting needles moving with the precision of a metronome. Her mild blue eyes, deceptively gentle, surveyed her guests with quiet amusement. Opposite her, Sir Henry Clithering, formerly of Scotland Yard, lounged with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to command. His silver hair caught the firelight, and his voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of authority tempered by charm. Dr. Lloyd Haydock, the village physician, occupied the sofa, his ruddy face creased with scepticism as he sipped his tea. Joyce Lempriere, the artist, perched on a cushioned stool, her dark curls bouncing as she gestured animatedly, her imagination already alight with possibilities. Lastly, the vicar's wife, Mrs. Martha Price, sat primly, her hands folded, her expression one of polite curiosity. "It's been too long since we had a proper puzzle," Sir Henry said, setting down his cup with a decisive clink. "And I've a mind to test your wits tonight, Miss Marple. A case from Danemouth not far from here. It stumped the local constabulary, and I confess it's got me intrigued." His eyes twinkled as he leaned forward. "A woman, Mrs. Eleanor Grayson, died after eating poisoned soup at her own dinner table. The poison, they say, was meant for her husband, Philip. What do you make of that?" A murmur rippled through the room. Joyce's eyes widened, her artist's sensibility stirred by the drama. Poisoned soup! How perfectly ghastly! Was it a slow poison, or something swift? Dr. Haydock cleared his throat. His medical curiosity piqued. "What was the poison, Clithering? Arsenic? Cyanide?" Sir Henry shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "It's strychnine, nasty stuff. Found in the soup course, but only in her bowl. The tureen was clean, as was Mr. Grayson's portion. He didn't touch his, you see. Said he wasn't hungry." Miss Marple's needles paused for the briefest moment, a subtle sign of her interest. She adjusted her shawl and tilted her head, her voice soft but clear. "Strychnine is a curious choice, Sir Henry. So violent, so unmistakable. And you say the poison was meant for Mr. Grayson?" Her tone carried no judgment, only a gentle probing, as if she were unravelling a knot in her knitting. Sir Henry nodded. "That's the theory. Philip Grayson is a barrister, well known in legal circles. A man like that might have enemies, disgruntled clients perhaps. But the poison ended up in Eleanor's bowl, and she paid the price." He spread his hands. "The police can't make heads or tails of it. No suspects, no clear motive. I thought you lot might have a go." Mrs. Price pursed her lips, her voice tinged with disapproval. Such wickedness in a Christian home? Was the household in disarray? Servants perhaps with grudges? Sir Henry chuckled. The staff seem loyal enough. A cook, a maid, a butler, all shaken, none with any reason to harm their master. As for the Graysons, they were respectable. Philip, charming and successful. Eleanor, quiet, a touch delicate. No whispers of discord, though she was said to be melancholy at times. Joyce leaned forward, her voice eager. Melancholy? Could she have done it herself? A tragic act. Dr. Haydock snorted. Suicide with strychnine? Hardly, my dear. It's a torturous way to go. No, this was murder, plain and simple. Miss Marple's eyes flickered toward Joyce, then back to her knitting. We mustn't assume too much, Miss Lempriere. Despair can drive people to strange choices, but strychnine. No, I agree with Dr. Haydock. This feels deliberate. Tell me, Sir Henry, was the dinner a formal affair? Guests, perhaps? Sir Henry shook his head. Just the two of them, dining alone. A simple meal, soup, roast lamb, fruit tart, the poison. Struck during the first course. Eleanor collapsed, convulsing. Philip called for help, but it was too late. His voice softened, betraying a trace of sympathy. A grim scene, by all accounts. The room fell silent, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Joyce shivered, drawing her shawl closer. It's like something from a novel. A quiet dinner, then death. Who could have done it? Mrs. Price nodded solemnly. The wages of sin, no doubt. But whose sin? Miss Marple set her knitting in her lap, her hands still. That, my dear Mrs. Price, is the question. A bowl of soup, a pinch of poison, and a husband who didn't eat. It reminds me of Mrs. Carstairs in our village, who once swore her neighbour poisoned her cat, only to find the poor creature had eaten tainted scraps from her own kitchen. Things are not always as they seem. Her voice was mild, but her eyes gleamed with a quiet intensity. I should like to know more about Mr. and Mrs. Grayson, Sir Henry. Their habits, their hearts, and perhaps their secrets. Sir Henry grinned, sensing the spark of her curiosity. I'll tell you all I know, Miss Marple, but I warn you, this one's a tangle. He settled back, ready to recount the details, as the fire burned low and the Tuesday night club leaned in, eager for the next thread of the mystery. Chapter 2. The scene of the crime. The drawing-room of Miss Marple's cottage seemed to shrink as Sir Henry Clithering's voice filled the space, weaving the grim tale of the Grayson tragedy. The fire had settled into a steady glow, casting long shadows that danced across the wallpaper. Miss Marple's knitting lay momentarily still in her lap, her fingers poised as if to catch the threads of the mystery itself. Joyce Lempriere, her eyes wide with morbid fascination, hugged her knees, while Dr. Haydock's brow furrowed, his medical mind already dissecting the facts. Mrs. Price, ever the moral sentinel, sat rigid, her lips pressed into a thin line. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the very walls of St. Mary Mead held their breath. Sir Henry leaned forward, his hands clasped, his tone measured yet vivid. The Graysons' home in Danemouth is a fine old place, Greystone Hall, all Georgian symmetry and ivy-clad walls. The dining room where it happened is long and grand, with a mahogany table that could seat 20, though that night it held only 2. The evening was ordinary, or so it seemed. No guests, no fuss, just Philip and Eleanor Grayson, dining at 8 o'clock sharp. He paused, letting the scene take shape in their minds. The meal began with a cream of mushroom soup, served from a silver tureen. The maid, Lily, ladled it into their bowls at the sideboard, then placed them before the couple. Philip sat at the head, Eleanor to his right. They'd barely begun when Eleanor took a few spoonfuls, faltered, and then Sir Henry's voice dropped. She clutched her throat, her face contorted in agony. She fell from her chair, convulsing. Philip leapt up, shouting for help, but by the time the butler reached her, she was gone. Joyce gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. How awful! To die like that, in one's own home. Dr. Haydock's eyes narrowed. Strychnine, you said. That fits. It's quick, 10-20 minutes at most, and brutal. Convulsions, rigidity, the lot. But how did it get into her soup alone? Sir Henry spread his hands. That's the puzzle. The police tested everything. The tureen, the ladle, Philip's bowl, all clean. Only Eleanor's portion held the poison, a lethal dose dissolved into the cream. Miss Marple's voice, soft as a whisper, cut through the tension. And Mr. Grayson's bowl, Sir Henry. He truly ate none of his soup? Sir Henry nodded. Not a drop. He told the police he'd felt unwell that day, no appetite. Said he meant to skip the soup and start with the lamb. Her eyes, sharp behind their gentle facade, met his. A fortunate indisposition, wouldn't you say? And the bowls themselves were, they examined closely. Plain white porcelain, Sir Henry replied. Part of a set. No marks, no differences. Lily swore she didn't mix them up. She served Eleanor first, then Philip, as always. Mrs. Price tisked, her voice sharp. A careless girl, perhaps. Servants these days lack proper training. Miss Marple tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. I doubt carelessness, Mrs. Price. Strychnine doesn't wander into a bowl by chance. It requires a hand and a purpose. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin. The kitchen, then. Could someone have tampered with the soup before it reached the dining room? Sir Henry shook his head. The cook, Mrs. Bates, is a stout, honest woman. Been with the Graysons for years. She prepared the soup herself, tasted it for seasoning, and sent it up with Lily. No trace of poison in the kitchen, and Mrs. Bates is hale as ever. Joyce's voice trembled with excitement. What if someone crept in? A stranger, with a grudge against Mr. Grayson? Sir Henry's expression turned. Rye. Greystone Hall's no fortress, but it's secure. No signs of a break-in, no strangers reported. Just the Graysons and their 3 staff that night. He ticked them off on his fingers. Mrs. Bates in the kitchen, Lily serving, and Harrow, the butler, tending the wine and clearing plates. Miss Marple's needles resumed their quiet rhythm, the click-clack a counterpoint to her thoughts. And the wine, Sir Henry, was it tested? He blinked, caught off guard. Yes, but it was clean. Harrow poured it after the soup was served, a red Bordeaux. Philip drank a glass. Eleanor barely touched hers. Miss Marple nodded, her expression unreadable. "I see. And the rest of the meal, the lamb, the tart, was it eaten?" "The lamb was carved but untouched after Eleanor's collapse. The tart never made it to the table, all tested, all clean." Sir Henry's tone betrayed a hint of frustration. "The police tore the place apart. No strychnine in the pantry, the cellar, or the servants' quarters. It's as if the poison appeared from thin air." Dr. Haydock snorted. "Poison doesn't materialize, Clithering. Someone put it there. The question is who had access to that bowl." Joyce's eyes lit up. "The maid! She handled the bowls! What if she's lying?" Mrs. Price nodded vigorously. "Indeed, a dishonest servant could do untold harm." Miss Marple's voice was gentle, but firm. "Let us not condemn young Lily too hastily. In my village I recall a grocer's boy accused of stealing when it was the shopkeeper's own cousin pilfering stock. The obvious culprit is rarely the true one." She turned to Sir Henry. "Tell me, was the dining-room well lit? Candles, perhaps, or electric lights?" Sir Henry raised an eyebrow, sensing her drift. "Electric chandeliers, bright as day. No shadowy corners for mischief, if that's what you're thinking." Miss Marple smiled faintly. "I'm thinking of many things, Sir Henry. A bright room, a simple meal, and a poison that chose its victim with precision. It's a stage, don't you think? Set for a very particular performance." Joyce shivered again, her voice barely a whisper. "You make it sound so deliberate, like a play." Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight. "Murder often is, my dear. And the actors, I suspect, are closer than we think." She picked up her knitting, her needles moving once more, as Sir Henry watched her, a spark of admiration in his eyes. The mystery of Greystone Hall had only begun to unfold, and the Tuesday night club was firmly in its grip. Chapter 3. The household, the fire in Miss Marple's drawing-room, had dwindled to a nest of glowing embers, casting a warm, intimate light over the Tuesday night club. The air was heavy with the scent of wood smoke and the faint tang of Earl Grey, tea now cooling in delicate china cups. Miss Jane Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her slight frame almost swallowed by the cushions, her knitting needles idle for the moment. Her eyes, bright and bird-like, darted from face to face, absorbing every flicker of expression among her companions. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death had woven a spell over the room, and the group leaned forward, eager for the next piece of the puzzle. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair gleaming in the firelight, had settled into the role of storyteller, with the ease of a man accustomed to holding court. His voice, rich and deliberate, carried the weight of authority. Yet there was a spark of mischief in his gaze as he addressed the club. "We've set the stage at Greystone Hall," he began. "The dining-room, the poisoned soup, the tragic end of Mrs. Grayson. Now let's turn to the players in this drama, the household itself. For if the poison was no accident, then someone within those walls must know more than they've let on." Joyce Lempriere, her dark curls framing a face alight with imagination, clasped her hands together. "The servants, you mean? Oh, I can. Just picture it. A disgruntled maid, perhaps, or a butler with a secret grudge." Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks flushed from the warmth of the room, chuckled dryly. "You've been reading too many novels, Miss Lempriere. Servants don't go poisoning their masters without reason. Motive, That's what we need." Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, nodded primly, her hands folded in her lap. "Indeed, loyalty is the cornerstone of a proper household. But in these modern times, who can say?" Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Loyalty, Mrs. Price, is a curious thing. It can bind a heart or mask a lie. In my village, I once knew a housemaid who seemed devoted to her mistress, yet pilfered silver spoons to pay a gambling debt. People are rarely as simple as they appear." Her voice was soft, almost a murmur, but it carried a quiet authority that drew every eye. "Tell us, Sir Henry, about the Grayson household. Who served at Greystone Hall?" Sir Henry cleared his throat, settling back in his chair. "A small staff, as these things go. 3 in all: Mrs. Agnes Bates, the cook, Lily Carter, the housemaid, and Mr. Thomas Harrow, the butler. The Graysons kept no footmen or gardeners indoors that night, and no one else was in the house. The police questioned them thoroughly, but their stories hold, at least on the surface." He began with Mrs. Bates, painting her portrait with vivid strokes. Agnes Bates is a woman of middle years, stout as a barrel, with hands rough from years in the kitchen. She's been with the Graysons for nigh on a decade, ever since they moved to Danemouth. A widow, no children, and fiercely proud of her craft. She rules the kitchen like a general, and by all accounts her soups and roasts were the talk of the county. She prepared the cream of mushroom soup that night, tasted it herself to check the seasoning, and sent it up with Lily. When the police questioned her, she was near hysterics, swearing on her mother's grave that no poison touched her pots. Joyce's eyes widened. She tasted the soup, and she's alive? Then the poison couldn't have been in the tureen. Dr. Haydock nodded, his medical mind engaged. Precisely. Strychnine's not subtle. If it was in the soup, Mrs. Bates tasted, she'd have been on the floor long before it reached the dining room. It must have been added later. Miss Marple tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. And yet, Dr. Haydock, we must consider how. A tureen is a large vessel, not easily tampered with unnoticed. Was Mrs. Bates alone in the kitchen? Sir Henry confirmed it. She was, from the moment she began cooking until Lily took the tureen, upstairs. The kitchen's at the back of the house, with a single door to the servants' passage. No one entered, she says, and the police found no signs of intrusion. Mrs. Price tisked, her voice sharp. A cook alone with her pots is no guarantee of innocence. She might have a secret, some resentment against her mistress. Miss Marple's needles resumed their gentle clicking. Perhaps, Mrs. Price, but a cook's pride is in her food. To poison her own dish would be a betrayal of herself. Tell us about the maid, Sir Henry. Sir Henry's eyes gleamed as he shifted to Lily Carter. Lily's a slip of a girl, barely 20, with a nervous manner and a habit of blushing when spoken to. She's been at Greystone Hall for 2 years, hired straight from a village near Danemouth. The police describe her as timid but diligent, the sort who scurries about her duties without complaint. That night, she was responsible for serving the soup. She ladled it into 2 bowls at the dining room sideboard, placed Eleanor's before her first, then Philip's, as was their custom. She swears she saw nothing amiss, no powder, no tampering. When Eleanor collapsed, Lily was in the passage, fetching the lamb. She came running at Philip's shout, but it was too late. Joyce leaned forward, her voice eager. A nervous girl, you say? She could have been bribed or frightened into it. Someone might have slipped her the poison, told her to add it. Dr. Haydock frowned. Bribed to murder? That's a stretch for a village maid. And strychnine's not exactly pocket change. Where would she get it? Sir Henry added, the police searched her room. No trace of poison, no mysterious letters, or money. Lily's engaged to a grocer's lad in Danemouth, a steady sort. She's planning a spring wedding, or was, until this shook her. Miss Marple's eyes softened, though her gaze remained sharp. A young girl, in love, with dreams of a new life. Such a one is vulnerable, but not, I think, to murder. In St. Mary Mead, we had a parlour-maid, Jenny, who wept for days when accused of breaking a vase, though it was her mistress's son who'd done it. Innocence can look like guilt under pressure. Did Lily seem frightened, Sir Henry, beyond the shock of the tragedy? Sir Henry considered this. She was shaken, certainly. Kept wringing her hands, saying she'd done everything as usual. The police pressed her hard, thinking she might crack, but she stuck to her story. No contradictions, though she was near tears the whole time. Miss Marple nodded slowly. Tears are natural in such a moment, but we must ask, was she crying for Eleanor or for herself? The room fell quiet, the weight of her words settling over the group. Sir Henry moved on to the butler, Thomas Harrow. Harrow's the oldest of the trio, nearing 60, with a face like carved oak, stern, unreadable. He's been a butler for 30 years, the last 5 with the Graysons. A man of few words, meticulous in his duties. That night he was in the dining room, pouring the wine after Lily served the soup. He cleared the bowls after the collapse, though he says he touched nothing until the police arrived. His record is spotless, and he's known for his loyalty to Philip, who raised his wages last year. Joyce's imagination flared again. A butler. They're always suspicious in stories, so dignified, but what's he hiding? Mrs. Price sniffed. Dignity is no shield for sin. He had access to the dining room. Could he have slipped something into the bowl? Dr. Haydock shook his head. Risky, with both Graysons watching. And what's his motive? A wage increase hardly screams resentment. Miss Marple's voice was gentle, almost musing. A butler sees everything, knows everything. In my village, old Mr. Pritchard's butler, James, could tell you the master's mood by the way he folded his newspaper. Mr. Harrow would know the Graysons' habits, their routines. Did he notice anything unusual that night, Sir Henry? Sir Henry rubbed his chin. He told the police it was a night like any other. Philip was cheerful, Eleanor quieter than usual, but nothing out of the ordinary. Harrow poured the wine, stood by the sideboard, and waited to serve the next course. When Eleanor fell, he ran to fetch a doctor, though it was hopeless. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed. And yet he was there in the room when the soup was eaten. A silent witness, or perhaps something more. The club absorbed this, their minds racing. Joyce ventured, what about the Graysons themselves? You said Eleanor was delicate, Sir Henry. Was she ill? Sir Henry nodded. She was frail, prone to headaches and nerves. Took a tonic prescribed by her doctor, but the police tested it, clean as a whistle. Philip, on the other hand, is hale, a man in his prime, 42, with a reputation as a charmer in court and out of it. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. A charming man can hide a wicked heart. Was he faithful to his wife? Sir Henry hesitated, a shadow crossing his face. No scandals, but there's talk. Philip was seen in London with a Mrs. Clara Wentworth, a widow of some means. Nothing proven, mind you, just whispers. Joyce clapped her hands. A lover! That's it! Perhaps Eleanor found out and— She stopped, catching Miss Marple's raised eyebrow. Let us not leap to romance just yet, Miss Marple said, softly. Whispers are like cobwebs, fragile, but they cling. We must know more about the household's rhythm. Sir Henry, how did the staff view their mistress? Was Eleanor kind or strict? Sir Henry considered this. Eleanor was reserved, not one for chit-chat with the servants. Mrs. Bates respected her, though she found her particular about menus. Lily was a bit afraid of her. Eleanor could be sharp if things weren't done just so. Harrow, well, he's too professional to gossip, but he served her without complaint. Philip, by contrast, was the favourite. Always a kind word, a jest, a tip at Christmas. Dr. Haydock grunted. Sounds like a divided house. Eleanor the taskmaster, Philip the saint. That's a recipe for tension. Miss Marple's needles clicked once more. Tension, yes. But murder requires more than a harsh word or a cold glance. Strychnine is a deliberate choice, not a spur-of-the-moment act. Someone in that house had a plan. Joyce's voice was hushed. But who? The cook with her pots, the maid with her bowls, the butler with his wine. Mrs. Price added, or the husband with his charm. We mustn't forget him. Dr. Haydock nodded, nor the victim. Eleanor's tonic, her nerves. Could she have been driven to something desperate? Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl slipping slightly. Desperation, Dr. Haydock, is a possibility, but strychnine is not the tool of a desperate woman. It's the weapon of a calculating mind. I think of Mrs. Langley in St. Mary Mead, who planned her husband's birthday feast with such care, only to discover he'd invited a rival to steal the spotlight. She smiled through it, but her eyes, oh, they told a different story. We must look for the eyes in this tale, the ones that hide the truth. Sir Henry watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. You're spinning a web, Miss Marple. Where do we look next? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous in the firelight. To the dining room, Sir Henry. To the moment the soup was served and the hands that touched it. For somewhere in that moment a choice was made, and a life was taken. The club fell silent, the crackle of the fire the only sound. The household of Greystone Hall had come alive in their minds. A cook with her pride, a maid with her fears, a butler with his secrets, and a husband whose charm might conceal a darker truth. The mystery deepened, and Miss Marple's quiet presence seemed to anchor them all, a beacon in the fog of suspicion. The night was far from over, and the Tuesday nightclub was only beginning to unravel the threads of murder. Chapter 4. The Other Woman. The drawing-room of Miss Jane Marple's cottage in St. Mary Mead was a haven of quiet warmth, its chintz curtains drawn against the November chill. The fire, now a steady pulse of embers, cast a golden glow over the faces of the Tuesday nightclub, their expressions a mix of intrigue and unease. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death had taken root, each detail a seed that sprouted new questions. Miss Marple sat in her armchair, her frail figure draped in a lavender shawl, her knitting needles resting in her lap like a scholar's pen. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding beneath their gentle surface, flickered with the keenness of a mind at work. Sir Henry Clithering, his posture relaxed yet commanding, held the floor with the ease of a seasoned raconteur. His silver hair gleamed, and his voice carried a hint of relish as he steered the conversation to a new figure in the Grayson drama. "We've examined the household," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. "The cook, the maid, the butler, and the Graysons themselves. But there's another name that surfaced in Danemouth, one that set tongues wagging. Mrs. Clara Wentworth, a widow of some repute. And, I dare say, a woman who might hold a key to this puzzle." Joyce Lempriere, her artist soul ever drawn to the romantic, leaned forward, her dark curls bouncing. "A widow! Oh, Sir Henry! Is she beautiful? Is there a scandal?" Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy face creased with scepticism, snorted. "Scandal's all well and good, Miss Lempriere, but we need facts. Who is this woman, Clithering?" Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat stiffly, her lips pursed in disapproval. A widow with a reputation is seldom a good influence. Was she entangled with Mr. Grayson? Miss Marple's fingers brushed her knitting, though she did not lift it. Her voice, soft as a breeze, cut through the chatter. "Entanglements, Mrs. Price, are often more complex than they seem. In my village I recall Miss Elspeth, a widow herself, who was blamed for a gentleman's attentions when it was he who pursued her. Let us hear about Mrs. Wentworth, Sir Henry, and judge her not by whispers, but by truth." Sir Henry's eyes twinkled, sensing the club's eagerness. "Clara Wentworth is a woman who turns heads, no doubt about it. 35, perhaps, with the kind of elegance that makes you look twice. Fair hair, always dressed in the latest fashion. Parisian, they say, since she spent a year there after her husband's death. He was a naval officer, left her a modest fortune, enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly. She returned to Danemouth 6 months ago, taking a charming little house on the edge of town. Since then she's been a fixture at dinners and garden parties, all charm and wit." Joyce's imagination flared. "She sounds divine, like a heroine from a novel, sweeping into town with secrets. Was she close to Philip Grayson?" Sir Henry's expression grew cautious. "Close is a strong word. They were seen together, yes. A supper in London, a concert at the Danemouth Assembly Rooms. Nothing overt, mind you, but enough to stir gossip. Philip's a barrister, often in London for cases, and Clara's been known to visit the city. The locals noticed." Dr. Haydock raised an eyebrow. Noticed or invented? Small towns love a story. Was there evidence of an affair? Sir Henry spread his hands. No letters, no witnesses to anything improper. But the police heard the rumours and questioned her. Clara was all poise. Said she and Philip were acquaintances, nothing more. She expressed horror at Eleanor's death and claimed no knowledge of the poison. Mrs. Price's voice was sharp. Acquaintances indeed. A respectable man doesn't dine alone with a widow unless there's intent. Did Mrs. Grayson know of these outings? Sir Henry hesitated. Eleanor was a private woman, not one for gossip. If she knew, she kept it to herself. Her maid, Lily, mentioned no quarrels about Clara, though Eleanor was quieter in recent months, more withdrawn. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed, though her face remained serene. Withdrawn, you say? A woman's silence can speak volumes. In St. Mary Mead, Mrs. Harrowby grew quiet before her husband's scandal broke, not because she was ignorant, but because she saw too much. Did Eleanor ever meet Mrs. Wentworth, Sir Henry? Sir Henry nodded. Once, at a charity bazaar in Eoch, Danemouth. Witnesses say they exchanged pleasantries, nothing more. Clara was all smiles, Eleanor polite but cool. No hint of animosity, though some thought Eleanor seemed strained. Joyce clapped her hands. A confrontation, hidden in plain sight. Perhaps Eleanor suspected something and confronted Philip. Dr. Haydock grunted. Confronted him into poisoning her? That's a leap, my dear. If Philip wanted Clara, why not divorce Eleanor? It's messy, but less fatal. Sir Henry added, divorce would have cost him. Eleanor had a tidy inheritance from her father, a shipping merchant. It passed to Philip upon her death, no strings attached. Miss Marple's voice was soft, almost musing. Money is a powerful motive, Dr. Haydock, but so is freedom. A divorce might tarnish a barrister's reputation, especially one as charming as Mr. Grayson. And Mrs. Wentworth, does she have means of her own, Sir Henry, or ambitions that might require more? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. Her inheritance keeps her afloat, but she's not wealthy. She's known to enjoy the finer things, travel, gowns, the London season. Some say she's hunting for a second husband, though she's coy about it. Philip's success and Eleanor's fortune would make him eligible, shall we say. Joyce's eyes sparkled. A fortune and a handsome barrister. No wonder she was circling him. Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened. Circling, like a vulture. Such women bring ruin. Could she have slipped into Greystone Hall, poisoned the soup herself? Dr. Haydock shook his head. Unlikely. She wasn't in the house that night, and strychnine's not easy to come by. Besides, why target Eleanor? If she wanted Philip, he's the one to remove. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping. Unless, Dr. Haydock, the target was never Philip at all. Whispers of an affair can cloud the truth. In my village, a young man was thought to be enamoured of a widow, but it was her sister who held his heart. We must ask, what did Clara Wentworth gain from Eleanor's death? Or perhaps, what did someone wish us to think she gained? The room fell silent, her words hanging like mist. Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with admiration. You're suggesting a misdirection, Miss Marple, that the affair was a smokescreen. She smiled faintly. I suggest nothing, Sir Henry. I only wonder. Tell us more about Mrs. Wentworth's life in Danemouth. Did she have enemies, or friends who might speak for her? Sir Henry painted a vivid picture. Clara's a social creature, always at issue, the centre of things. She hosts teas, plays the pianoforte beautifully, and has a knack for making men laugh. Women, though, are less charmed. Some call her calculating, others admire her spirit. She's close to a few local ladies, Miss Daphne Crane, a spinster with a sharp tongue, and Mrs. Violet Harrowby, the mayor's wife. The police spoke to them. Both vouched for Clara's character, though Daphne hinted Clara was ambitious, and not one to settle for less than she deserved. Joyce's voice was hushed. Ambitious, that's telling. Did she ever visit Greystone Hall? Sir Henry shook his head. Not as a guest. She called once, months ago, to leave a card for a charity event. Lily answered the door, said Clara was polite but didn't linger. Eleanor was out, Philip at work. Dr. Haydock frowned. So she knew the house, at least from the outside. But that's thin. We need a connection to the poison. Miss Marple's fingers traced the edge of her shawl. Poison, Dr. Haydock, requires opportunity, but also knowledge. Mrs. Wentworth's travels in Paris. Did she study anything there? Botany, perhaps, or chemistry? Sir Henry blinked, caught off guard. Nothing so academic. She studied art, they say, and music. No hint of an interest in poisons. The police checked her home, too. No strychnine, no suspicious bottles. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. Art and music are no shield for wickedness. She might have procured it elsewhere through some unsavoury contact. Joyce's imagination flared again. A secret lover, perhaps, supplying her with poison. Or a chemist, bribed to look the other way. Dr. Haydock chuckled. You're spinning tales again, Miss Lempriere. Strychnine's tightly controlled. A widow, even a charming one, can't just waltz into a chemist's shop and buy it. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight. And yet, it was bought or found by someone. In St. Mary Mead, old Mr. Tuttle kept strychnine in his shed for pests, until his wife locked it away, fearing mischief. Such things are not so rare as we think. Did Mrs. Wentworth have a garden, Sir Henry, or access to one? Sir Henry considered this. She has a small garden, roses mostly, tended by a local boy. The police found nothing unusual, no poisons, no gardening supplies beyond. The usual. Her house is elegant, not a laboratory. Miss Marple nodded, her expression unreadable. Of course, elegance is a fine mask, and her demeanour, when questioned. Did she seem grieved or merely correct? Sir Henry's tone grew thoughtful. Grieved, I'd say, but composed. She spoke softly, offered condolences, said she barely knew Eleanor, but admired Philip's work. The police found her cooperative, if a touch distant. No tears, but then she's not the weeping sort. Joyce sighed. She sounds like a woman who knows how to play her part. Too perfect, perhaps. Miss Marple's voice was gentle, but firm. Perfection, Miss Lempriere, is often a performance. We must look behind the curtain. Mrs. Wentworth's presence in this tale is no accident, whether she played a role or was cast in one by another. Sir Henry, did Philip speak of her after Eleanor's death? Did he defend her or distance himself? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. He was careful. Said Clara was a friend, nothing more, and that the gossip was cruel. He seemed more concerned with Eleanor's memory than Clara's reputation, but he didn't deny their acquaintance. Dr. Haydock grunted. Clever. He keeps her close, but not too close. If he's hiding something, he's playing a long game. Mrs. Price nodded vigorously. A long game indeed. A man like that, with a fortune and a widow waiting, might stoop to anything. We mustn't rule him out. Joyce's eyes widened. You think Philip and Clara planned it together? A pact to remove Eleanor? Dr. Haydock shook his head. Too risky. If they're lovers, why draw attention with public dinners? They'd be discreet. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her. Discretion, Dr. Haydock, is not always the goal. Sometimes visibility is the point. In my village, a young man courted a girl openly, only to distract from his true love a married woman. We must ask, who benefits from these whispers about Clara, and who wishes us to hear them? Sir Henry watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. "You're weaving a fine net, Miss Marple. Where do we cast it next?" Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. "To the heart of Greystone Hall, Sir Henry. To the dining room, the soup, and the hands that served it. For while Mrs. Wentworth's shadow looms large, the truth lies closer in the silence of those who were there." The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation. The figure of Clara Wentworth, now a vivid presence in their minds, a woman of charm, ambition, and perhaps secrets. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a beacon in the maze of suspicion. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death was far from solved, but the threads were tightening, and the club was ready to pull them taut. Chapter 5. The Soup Course. The drawing-room of Miss Jane Marple's cottage in St. Mary Mead glowed with the soft radiance of the fire, its embers pulsing like the heartbeat of the mystery that held the Tuesday night club in thrall. The November night pressed against the windows, a silent conspirator in the unfolding drama. Miss Marple sat in her armchair, her lavender shawl draped loosely over her shoulders, her knitting needle still, as if in reverence to the gravity of the tale. Her eyes, bright with the quiet intensity of a mind honed by years of observation, darted from one face to another, reading the unspoken thoughts of her companions. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair catching the firelight, leaned forward, his voice a blend of authority and intrigue. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had guided the club through the labyrinth of the Grayson case with the skill of a conductor, and now he poised to unravel a pivotal moment. "We've met the household," he said, his gaze sweeping the room, "and we've lingered on the shadow of Mrs. Clara Wentworth. But the heart of this mystery lies in the dining room, in the fleeting moments of the soup course. That's where Eleanor Grayson met her end, and where, I suspect, the truth hides in plain sight." Joyce Lempriere, her artist's imagination alight, hugged her knees, her dark curls framing a face flushed with anticipation. "The soup course, it's so intimate, isn't it? A bowl of soup, a quiet dinner, and then death. It's like a painting, all shadows and secrets." Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with concentration, adjusted his spectacles. "Intimate, perhaps, but practical. Strychnine in a bowl doesn't just appear. We need to know exactly how it got there." Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat ramrod straight, her hands clasped tightly. "Such a moment defiled by wickedness. The dining room should be a place of fellowship, not murder." Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Fellowship, Mrs. Price, can mask darker currents. In my village, I once attended a tea where the hostess served scones with such warmth, yet her eyes betrayed a grudge against her guest. The dining room is a stage, and the soup course, I think, was its opening act. Tell us, Sir Henry, every detail of that moment. Leave nothing out." Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with appreciation for her precision. "Very well, Miss Marple, let's set the scene. The dining room at Greystone Hall is a grand affair, long with high ceilings and walls panelled in dark oak. A crystal chandelier, electric now, bathes the room in light, no corners left to shadow. The table, polished mahogany, stretches the length of the room. But that night it was set for two. Philip Grayson at the head, Eleanor to his right, their places marked by silver and fine china. The soup, cream of mushroom, was served at 8 o'clock precisely. He paused, letting the image take hold, for Lily Carter, the maid, brought the silver tureen from the kitchen, setting it on the sideboard near the table's end. She ladled the soup into 2 white porcelain bowls, identical, no marks or patterns, using a silver ladle. She placed Eleanor's bowl first, then Philip's, stepping back to let Thomas Harrow, the butler, pour the wine. A red Bordeaux, decanted earlier, served in crystal goblets. Philip raised his glass, said a word or two to Eleanor. Something light, the police couldn't say what. And then Eleanor took her first spoonful. Joyce's breath caught. And then? Did she notice anything? The taste, the smell? Sir Henry's voice grew sombre. She took 2 or 3 spoonfuls, no more. Witnesses, Lily and Harrow, who were near the sideboard, say she paused, her brow furrowing, as if the soup was off. Then, within moments, she gasped, her spoon clattering to the table. She clutched her chest, her face twisting in pain, and fell from her chair, convulsing. Philip leapt up, shouting for help. Harrow ran for a doctor. Lily froze in panic, and by the time anyone could act, Eleanor was dead. Dr. Haydock's medical mind seized the details. Classic strychnine. The bitter taste might have tipped her off, but it acts fast. 10 minutes, sometimes less, with a dose like that. The police confirmed it was in her bowl alone. Sir Henry nodded. The bowl, the spoon, even the traces on her lips, all laced with strychnine. Philip's bowl, the tureen, the ladle, the kitchen pots, all clean. The poison was in Eleanor's portion and nowhere else. Mrs. Price's voice was sharp with indignation. Such precision! Only a devil could manage it. Was the maid careless, mixing up the bowls? Sir Henry shook his head. Lily insists she followed routine. Eleanor's bowl first, placed directly before her, then Philip's. The bowls were identical, but she's certain she didn't swap them. She was trembling when she told the police, but her story never wavered. Marple's voice, soft as a whisper, cut through the tension. Trembling, you say? A young girl, faced with death, might tremble for many reasons. In St. Mary Mead, our postmistress's niece shook like a leaf when questioned about a lost parcel, though she'd only misplaced it. Lily's fear may be guilt, or simply shock. Tell me, Sir Henry, where was Philip during the serving? His hands, his eyes, what were they doing? Sir Henry's brow furrowed, sensing the weight of her question. Philip was seated, waiting, as Lily served. Harrow says he was adjusting his napkin, unfolding it with care, perhaps a touch distracted. He didn't touch the bowls or the tureen. When Eleanor began eating, he looked at her, smiled, but didn't lift his spoon. Said later he wasn't hungry, felt a bit under the weather. Joyce's eyes widened. Not hungry? At his own dinner? That's suspicious, surely. Dr. Haydock nodded. Convenient, I'd say. If he knew the soup was poisoned, he'd avoid it. But how could he know unless he put it there himself? Mrs. Price gasped. The husband! To poison his own wife! At their table, it's monstrous. Sir Henry raised a hand. Hold on now. Philip's no fool. If he poisoned the soup, he'd have to be certain it reached Eleanor, not him. Those bowls were identical, and Lily served them in order. It's a risky game, Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, though her face remained serene. Risky, yes, but not impossible. A man who knows his household's habits, Lily's routine, Harrow's duties, might find a way. In my village, Mr. Carstairs once switched teacups at a garden party, a jest to tease his wife, but no one noticed until he confessed. Small gestures, Sir Henry, can hide great intent. Did Philip often skip his soup, or was this new? Sir Henry considered this. Harrow says Philip was fond of Mrs. Bates's soups, rarely missed them. That night was unusual, but he claimed a stomach upset, nothing serious. The police found no medical history to support it, though. Joyce clapped her hands. A lie, then! He knew the soup was deadly! Dr. Haydock frowned. Or he genuinely wasn't hungry. We can't hang a man on a skipped meal. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping. Nor can we dismiss it, Dr. Haydock. A skipped meal, a distracted glance, a napkin adjusted just so. These are the threads of human nature. Let us consider the sideboard. Lily ladled the soup there, yes? Was it in view of the table or hidden? Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, following her logic. In view, directly across from Philip's seat, about 10 feet away. The sideboard's against the wall, under a large mirror. Lily faced the room as she served, her back to the mirror. Philip and Eleanor could see her clearly, as could Harrow, who stood nearby. Miss Marple nodded. And the tureen? When was it brought in? Before the Graysons sat, or after? Before, Sir Henry replied. Lily brought it in as they entered the dining room, set it on the sideboard, and waited for their signal to serve. Philip nodded, and she began. Joyce's voice trembled with excitement. Could someone have tampered with it then, before she ladled it? Sir Henry shook his head. The police thought of that. The tureen was clean, no trace of strychnine. The poison was only in Eleanor's bowl. Miss Marple's fingers traced the edge of her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. Only in her bowl. A precise act, in a room full of eyes. Tell me, Sir Henry, about the wine. Harrow poured it after the soup was served, you said. Did he leave the room at any point before Eleanor ate? Sir Henry shook his head. No, he was there from the moment the Graysons sat, decanting the wine at the sideboard, then pouring it. He stepped back to wait, watching the table. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. A butler should be above suspicion, but his presence makes him suspect. Could he have dropped something into the bowl as he passed? Dr. Haydock snorted. With Philip and Eleanor watching, he'd need nerves of steel and a magician's hand. Joyce's imagination flared. Perhaps he distracted them. A spilled glass, a cough, something to draw their eyes. Sir Henry's tone was dry. No spills, no coughs. Harrow's a model of decorum. The police pressed him, but he's unshakable. Says he saw nothing, did nothing, beyond his duties. Miss Marple's voice was gentle, almost musing, and yet he was there, a silent shadow. In St. Mary Mead, our vicar's butler once noticed a guest slip sugar into another's tea, but said nothing, thinking it a prank. Silence can be complicity, or simply caution. We must know Harrow's heart. The club absorbed this, their minds racing. Joyce ventured, what about the bowls themselves? Could one have been poisoned before it reached the sideboard? Sir, Henry shook his head. The bowls were from a set, stored in the pantry, washed that day by Mrs. Bates. No trace of poison until Eleanor's was filled. Lily took them straight from the pantry to the sideboard. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin. Then it's the moment of serving. Lily's the key. She handled the bowls, the ladle. If she's lying or was coerced. Mrs. Price nodded. A weak girl might be swayed by a stronger will. A bribe, a threat. Miss Marple's eyes softened. Or she might be innocent, caught in a web not of her making. We must not judge too harshly, lest we miss the spider. Sir Henry watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. You're circling something, Miss Marple. What's in your mind? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. I'm thinking of timing, Sir Henry, of hands that move when eyes are elsewhere. The soup was ladled, the wine poured, the napkin adjusted, all in a dance of routine. Somewhere in that dance, a step was added, a fatal one. Did Philip speak to Eleanor as she ate, or was he silent? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. Harrow says Philip spoke briefly. A comment about the day's weather, nothing deep. Eleanor nodded, took her spoonfuls, and then— It happened? Miss Marple nodded slowly. A comment, a nod, a moment. In St. Mary Mead, a farmer distracted his wife with talk of crops, while he slipped a coin from her purse. Small distractions, Sir Henry, can cover great deeds. Joyce shivered, her voice barely a whisper. You make it sound so deliberate, like a plan unfolding before their eyes. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight. Murder, Miss Lempriere, is always a plan, and this one, I think, was crafted with care. We must look to the jeu de coeur, hands that touched the bowl, and the eyes that did not. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation. The soup course now a vivid tableau in their minds. A bowl of poison, a husband's pause, a maid's trembling hands, a butler's silent watch. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a compass in the fog of suspicion. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death was tightening, and the club was poised to unravel its next thread. Chapter 6. The Husband's Tale. The fire in Miss Jane Marple's drawing room cast a flickering glow over the Tuesday night club, its embers weaving shadows that seemed to dance with the mystery at hand. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of lavender from a bowl on the mantel. Outside, the November night wrapped St. Mary Mead in a quiet chill, but within the cottage the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her slight frame almost lost in the folds of a lavender shawl. Her knitting lay untouched, her hands folded in her lap, but her eyes, bright, piercing, and deceptively gentle, missed nothing. The Grayson case had drawn the group into its web, and each new detail tightened the threads. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair gleaming, leaned back in his chair, his presence commanding yet tinged with a storyteller's relish. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had guided the club through the dining room's fatal soup course, and now he turned to a figure at the heart of the tragedy. We've lingered on the servants, the widow Wentworth, and the mechanics of the poison, he said, his voice rich with purpose. But we've yet to hear from the man who sat opposite Eleanor Grayson that night, Philip Grayson himself. His account, I think, may hold the key to this puzzle, or at least a piece of it. Joyce, Lempriere, her artist's soul alight with drama. Perched on the edge of her stool, her dark curls framing a face flushed with curiosity. The husband. Oh, Sir Henry, he's the one I've been waiting for. Was he heartbroken or something else? Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with skepticism, adjusted his spectacles. Heartbroken or not, he's the one who didn't eat the soup. That's what I want to know about. What's his story? Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat stiffly, her hands clasped in disapproval. A husband's duty is to protect his wife. If he failed, or worse, we must judge him harshly. Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. Judgment, Mrs. Price, is a heavy cloak, best worn lightly until the truth is clear. In my village, I knew a man who seemed the picture of grief when his wife fell ill. Yet his tears were for his own troubles, not hers. Let us hear Mr. Grayson's tale, Sir Henry, and listen not only to his words, but to what lies beneath them. Sir Henry's eyes twinkled with appreciation for her insight. Well said, Miss Marple. Let's have Philip Grayson's account, as he gave it to the Danimouth police. He's a barrister, 42, with a reputation for charm in the courtroom and out. A man of quick wit, polished manners, and by all accounts a steady nerve. When the police questioned him, he was composed, shaken, yes, but not broken. His story is simple, but simplicity, as we know, can hide complexity. He began, his voice painting the scene with vivid strokes. Philip told the police he and Eleanor dined alone that night, as they often did when he was home from London. The evening was unremarkable, he said. No guests, no quarrels, just a quiet meal at Greystone Hall. He'd had a long day preparing for a case, and felt a touch unwell. A vague discomfort he put down to fatigue. When Lily served the soup, he nodded for her to begin, as was his habit. Eleanor took her first spoonfuls while he adjusted his napkin, distracted by a thought about his work. He didn't touch his own bowl, intending to skip the soup and move to the lamb. Then, in a moment, Eleanor gasped, her face contorted, and she collapsed. Joyce's breath caught, her voice trembling. He just sat there, watching her die? How could he not act sooner? Sir Henry's tone was measured. He says he acted at once, leapt from his chair, called for Harrow, tried to help her. But strychnine, as Dr. Haydock can tell us, is merciless. By the time he reached her, she was beyond saving. He was frantic, he claims, shouting for a doctor, though Harrow had already gone. Dr. Haydock nodded, his medical mind engaged. Strychnine's a cruel beast. Once it takes hold, there's little to be done without an antidote, and even then, it's a race against time. His inaction, if you can call it that, isn't surprising. But his claim of feeling unwell, that's what piques my interest. Any evidence of illness? Sir Henry shook his head. None. The police asked his doctor, his colleagues. No recent complaints, no prescriptions beyond Eleanor's tonic for nerves. He looked healthy enough when questioned, though pale, understandably. Mrs. Price's voice was sharp. Pale indeed. A guilty conscience, perhaps. To sit by while his wife suffered, it's unnatural. Joyce's eyes widened. Unless he knew the soup was poisoned. That's why he didn't eat, because he planned it. Dr. Haydock frowned. Hold on now. If he poisoned her bowl, how did he ensure it reached her? Those bowls were identical, served by Lily. It's a gamble no barrister would take. Miss Marple's voice, soft as a breeze, cut through the debate. A gamble, Dr. Haydock, or a certainty? A man who knows his household's rhythms, Lily's careful hands, Harrow's watchful eyes, might find a way to tip the scales. In St. Mary Mead, a grocer once slipped a bad apple into a customer's bag, knowing she'd never check until it was too late. Precision, Sir Henry, is often a matter of habit. What did Philip say about the poison itself? Sir Henry's brow furrowed following her thread. He was adamant it was meant for him. As a barrister, he's handled cases involving unsavoury types, smugglers, fraudsters, even a murderer or two. He suggested an enemy from his work, someone with a grudge, slipped the strychnine into the soup to silence him. He was shaken, he said, that Eleanor paid the price instead. My poor darling, he called her, and swore he'd give anything to trade places. Joyce's voice was hushed. He sounds so devoted. Could he really be so cold as to kill her? Mrs. Price snorted. Words are cheap, Miss Lempriere. A man's tears can be as false as a woman's rouge. What of this Clara Wentworth? Did he mention her? Sir Henry nodded. The police brought her up, given the gossip. Philip was firm. Mrs. Wentworth was a friend, nothing more. He admitted dining with her in London, a concert here and there, but said it was all above board. He called the rumours vile slander and begged the police to focus on finding Eleanor's killer. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin. Defensive, but not too much. A clever man knows how to play the grieving widower. What did the police make of his story? Sir Henry's tone grew wry. They found no cracks in it. His account matches Lily's, and Harrow's. Same sequence, same details. No strychnine in his study, his chambers, or his luggage. His cases were reviewed. No obvious enemies with access to poison. He's either innocent or a master at covering his tracks. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping. A master, perhaps, but no man is flawless. In my village, a farmer swore his barn fire was an accident, yet his boots carried traces of lamp oil. Small things, Sir Henry, betray the heart. Did Philip describe his wife's mood that night? Was she as quiet as the servants claimed? Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, sensing her drift. He said Eleanor was subdued, as she often was lately. He put it down to her nerves. She'd been fragile, he said, prone to headaches and low spirits. He tried to cheer her, made light conversation about the weather, their plans for Christmas. She smiled, he said, but took to her soup without much talk. He didn't press her, thinking she needed rest. Joyce's voice trembled. Poor woman! Did she suspect anything, I wonder? A wife might sense her husband's heart turning. Missou. Price's disapproval deepened. If his heart turned, he had no business hiding it. A wife deserves honesty, not poison. Dr. Haydock grunted. Honesty or not, this smells of calculation. Philip's too neat, grief-stricken, but not a hair out of place. And that business about enemies? Sounds like a deflection to me. Miss Marple's fingers brushed her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. Deflection, Dr. Haydock, is a barrister's art. A man who sways juries knows how to shape a story. Tell me, Sir Henry, did Philip mention the dining room's routine? His habits, Eleanor's? Anything that might anchor the moment? Sir Henry nodded. He was particular about it. Said he liked the order of things. Lily serving, Harrow with the wine, Eleanor always first with her bowl. He called it the bare rhythm of home, said it soothed him after a day in court. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, though her face remained serene. The rhythm of home, a telling phrase. In St. Mary Mead, Mrs. Tuttle ran her kitchen like a clock, every task timed to the second. Her husband knew it so well, he could slip a letter into her post without her noticing, because she never looked twice at routine. Philip knew his stage. Sir Henry, he knew where every player stood. Joyce's imagination flared. You think he used that routine? Slipped the poison somehow, knowing Lily would serve it to Eleanor. Dr. Haydock frowned. How, though? The bowls were clean until filled, and Lily ladled them in plain sight. He'd need a conjurer's trick to pull it off. Mrs. Price nodded. Or a devil's cunning. A man who could do such a thing has no soul. Sir Henry watched Miss Marple, a smile tugging at his lips. You're circling him, Miss Marple. What's in your mind? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. I'm thinking of certainty, Sir Henry, of a man who knows his wife's place at the table, her habits, her trust. Philip didn't eat, and Eleanor died. That is no coincidence, but a choice. Did he show remorse beyond his words? Did his hands shake, his voice break? Sir Henry considered this. The police noted he was pale, his voice low but steady. He gripped the table when describing Eleanor's collapse, as if reliving it. They thought it genuine, but... Well, he's a barrister. He knows how to perform. Joyce shivered. A performance, like an actor, playing the widower while his wife lies dead. It's chilling. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her. Chilling, yes, but human. In St. Mary Mead, a young man wept for his lost love, yet his eyes were dry when he thought no one watched. We must look to Philip's silences. Sir Henry, what did he not say? Did he speak of the future, his plans, his fears? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. He spoke only of the past, of Eleanor's kindness, their years together. Said he couldn't imagine life without her. The police pressed him on Clara Wentworth, but he shut that down, said it was irrelevant. Dr. Haydock grunted. Irrelevant, my foot. A man with a widow on the side doesn't skip over her lightly unless he's hiding something. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. Hiding or scheming. If he and this Wentworth woman planned it, he'd need to keep her name clean. Joyce's eyes widened. A pact! They poisoned Eleanor to be together, and he's covering for her. Miss Marple's voice was gentle but firm. A pact, Miss Lempriere, is a heavy burden. Two hearts must align perfectly, and trust must be ironclad. I wonder if Philip's heart is so easily shared. We must look closer, Sir Henry. To the dining room, yes, but also to Philip's world, his cases, his travels, his secrets. For if he is our spider, his web is woven tight. Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with admiration. You're spinning a fine thread, Miss Marple. Where do we pull next? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. To the edges, Sir Henry. To the staff who saw him, the clients who feared him, the widow who smiled with him. For somewhere, in a glance or a pause, Philip Grayson has left a trace, and we shall find it. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation. Philip Grayson's tale now a vivid portrait. In their minds, a grieving husband, a charming barrister, a man who might be victim or villain. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them. a beacon in the fog of suspicion. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death was a tightening knot, and the club was poised to unravel its next strand. Chapter 7. The Staff's Secrets. The drawing-room of Miss Jane Marple's cottage in St. Mary Mead was a sanctuary of warmth, its fire casting a steady glow that softened the edges of the November night. The scent of wood smoke mingled with the faint perfume of lavender, creating an atmosphere both cosy and charged with the weight of the mystery unfolding. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her lavender shawl draped loosely over her shoulders, her knitting needles resting in her lap like a dormant oracle. Her eyes, sharp and luminous beneath their gentle facade, flickered with the quiet intensity of a mind passing the threads of human nature. The Tuesday night club leaned forward, their faces a tableau of curiosity and suspicion, as the Grayson case deepened its hold. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair catching the firelight, held the floor with the practised ease of a man who had once unravelled crimes for Scotland Yard. His voice, rich and measured, carried a hint of anticipation as he steered the conversation to a new facet of the tragedy. "We've heard Philip Grayson's tale," he said, his gaze sweeping the room, "and we've lingered on the dining-room's fatal moment. But the servants, Mrs. Bates, Lily Carter, Thomas Harrow, were the eyes and hands of Greystone Hall that night. Their secrets, if they have any, may light the path to the truth. Joyce Lempriere, her artist's imagination ever vibrant, perched on her stool, her dark curls framing a face alight with intrigue. The servants! Oh, Sir Henry, they're always the ones who know everything. Whispers in the corridors, glances in the parlour. Do they have dark pasts, hidden grudges?" Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with scepticism, adjusted his spectacles. "Grudges or not, they're our best witnesses. If one of them saw something, or did something, we need to know." Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat rigidly, her hands clasped in disapproval. Servants should serve with humility, not deceit. If they've concealed anything, it's a betrayal of trust. Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Trust, Mrs. Price, is a fragile thread, easily frayed by fear or loyalty. In my village, a housemaid once hid her brother's theft, not from malice, but from love. We must listen to these servants, Sir Henry, not only for what they say, but for what they dare not. Tell us, what secrets do they carry?" Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with appreciation for her precision. "A fine question, Miss Marple. The Danemouth police dug into the lives of Mrs. Bates, Lily, and Harrow, looking for cracks in their stories. Each has a past, a character, a place in the Grayson household. Let's start with Mrs. Agnes Bates, the cook, whose soup became the instrument of death." He painted her portrait with vivid strokes. "Mrs. Bates is a woman of 50, broad-shouldered and sturdy, with hands calloused from years at the stove, a widow since her sailor husband drowned a decade ago. She's childless. Her life poured into her kitchen. She came to Greystone Hall 9 years back, when the Graysons settled in Danemouth, and her roasts and puddings earned her a quiet fame among the county's hostesses. She's a woman of fierce pride, quick to snap at a scullery maid who mishandles, a sauce, but loyal to the Graysons, especially Philip, who once praised her cooking to a visiting judge." Joyce's eyes widened. Loyal to Philip? Could she have favoured him over Eleanor, resented her mistress. Sir Henry's tone was measured. Eleanor was particular, Mrs. Bates told the police. Insisted on plain menus, no rich sauces, citing her delicate health. It irked Mrs. Bates, who loves her craft, but she obeyed. No sign of deep resentment, though. When questioned, she was distraught, swearing her soup was pure when it left her hands. She tasted it herself, she said, to check the seasoning, and felt no ill effects. Dr. Haydock's medical mind seized the detail. Tasted it and lived. That's crucial. Strychnine's bitter, unmistakable in a dose like that. If the poison wasn't in the tureen, it was added later, in the dining room. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. Or she's lying. A cook might claim she tasted it to cover her guilt. Miss Marple tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. Lying, Mrs. Price, is a heavy burden for a proud woman. In St. Mary Mead, our baker's wife swore her bread was fresh, even when it wasn't, because her pride couldn't bear the shame. Mrs. Bates's distress feels genuine, but we must ask, was she alone in that kitchen truly? Sir Henry nodded. She was, from the moment she began the soup until Lily took the tureen. The kitchen's a fortress. One door to the servants' passage, no windows low enough for intruders. The police found no signs of tampering, no stray vials or powders. Mrs. Bates keeps a tidy domain, every spice accounted for. Joyce's imagination flared. What if she had a secret? A debt, a lover, someone pressuring her to act? Sir Henry shook his head. The police looked into her life. No debts beyond a small grocer's bill, no lovers, no scandals. She's a solitary sort, attends church, saves her wages for a niece in Bristol. Miss Marple's fingers brushed her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. A solitary woman, loyal to her craft. Yet loyalty can blind or bind. Did she speak of Eleanor's death, Sir Henry? Her words, her tone, what did they reveal? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. She called it a tragedy, wept as she spoke of Eleanor's kindness. Small things, like a Christmas bonus or a word of thanks. But she was fiercer about Philip, said he didn't deserve such sorrow. The police noted her protectiveness, thought it odd but not incriminating. Miss Marple nodded slowly. Protectiveness is a clue to the heart. We shall keep Mrs. Bates in mind. Now, tell us of Lily Carter, the maid who served the fatal bowl. Sir Henry shifted to the young housemaid, his voice softening. Lily's a wisp of a girl, 19, with a nervous air and a habit of twisting her apron when anxious. She's from a village near Danemouth, daughter of a blacksmith, hired 2 years ago after a stint as a parlour maid. She's diligent, if timid, always scurrying to please. That night she carried the tureen to the dining room, ladled the soup into 2 identical porcelain bowls at the sideboard, and served them. Eleanor first, then Philip, as always. When Eleanor collapsed, Lily was in the passage fetching the lamb. She ran back at Philip's shout, saw Eleanor on the floor, and froze, too shocked to move. Joyce's voice trembled with sympathy. Poor girl! To witness that, so young! Was she terrified? Sir Henry nodded. Near hysterics, the police said. Kept wringing her hands, saying she'd done nothing wrong. Followed every step as taught. Her story held, no contradictions, though she stammered under pressure. She's engaged to a grocer's lad, Tom Wells, a steady sort. They're saving for a cottage, dreaming of a spring wedding. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin. A nervous girl, in love, with dreams to protect. Could someone have coerced her? A threat to her Tom, perhaps? Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened. A weak character bends to pressure. She handled the bowls. Could she have slipped in the poison? Sir Henry's tone was dry. The police searched her room, her belongings. No trace of strychnine, no mysterious payments. Lily's life is an open book. Church on Sundays, letters. To her mother, no enemies. She was terrified, yes, but of the police, not guilt. Miss Marple's eyes softened, though her gaze remained sharp. Terrified and young. In St. Mary Mead, a dairymaid wept when accused of curdling cream, though it was only a bad churn. Fear can look like guilt, but it can also hide truth. Did Lily speak of her masters, Sir Henry? Her feelings for them? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. She admired Philip, called him kind, said he always had a smile, a coin at Christmas. Eleanor was stricter, corrected her posture, her polishing. Lily was a touch afraid of her, but respected her. No hatred, no motive to harm. Miss Marple nodded. A girl who admires her master and fears her mistress. Such feelings shape what she sees or chooses to say. We must watch Lily closely. And now, Mr. Harrow, the butler, what of him? Sir Henry's voice grew grave as he turned to the butler. Thomas Harrow is a man of 60, tall and lean, with a face like weathered stone, unreadable except for a glint of pride in his work. He's been a butler for 3 decades, the last 5 at Greystone Hall. A widower, no children. His life is service. That night he poured the wine after Lily served the soup, stood by the sideboard ready to clear or serve. When Eleanor fell, he acted swiftly, running for a doctor, though it was futile. His account is precise, almost mechanical, no embellishments, no hesitations. Joyce's imagination sparked. A butler like that, he's too perfect. Like a character in a play, hiding something behind his polish. Dr. Haydock frowned. Hiding what? He had no reason to poison Eleanor, and he was in plain sight, pouring wine. No chance to tamper with the bowl. Mrs. Price nodded. Yet his silence troubles me. A man so reserved might know more than he tells. Miss Marple's voice was gentle, almost musing. Silence, Mrs. Price, is a butler's trade. In St. Mary Mead, our vicar's butler saw a guest pocket a silver spoon, but held his tongue, thinking it not his place. Did Harrow speak of the Graysons, Sir Henry? His loyalty, his observations? Sir Henry nodded. He was formal, called them the master and the mistress. Praised Philip's generosity. A wage rise last year, a word of thanks. Eleanor was proper, he said, but distant. He noted her quietness lately, but saw no cause for alarm. The police found his loyalty to Philip striking, almost fierce. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed. Fierce loyalty is a mirror. It reflects the master, but distorts the truth. Did Harrow mention Philip's habits, or Eleanor's, beyond that night? Sir Henry's tone grew thoughtful. He did, briefly. Said Philip was particular about the table. Liked his napkin folded just so. His wine poured at the right moment. Eleanor was less fussy, but always ate first, a habit Philip encouraged. Harrow saw it as gentlemanly. The police saw it as routine. Joyce's voice was hushed. Routine again. It's like a trap, set to catch Eleanor. Dr. Haydock grunted. Or a coincidence, exploited by someone clever. But who? None of these three have strychnine, motive, or opportunity. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. Someone does. The poison didn't appear by magic. We must look to their lives, their weaknesses. Miss Marple leaned forward, her shawl slipping slightly. Weaknesses, yes, but also strengths. A cook's pride, a maid's fear, a butler's silence. These are the colours of their souls. In St. Mary Mead, a gardener hid his master's affair, not for gain, but for duty. We must ask, what did these three see, or choose not to see? Shave, Henry, did the police search beyond their rooms? Say the servants' quarters, the attic, the garden shed. Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, following her logic. They did. Every corner of Greystone Hall, pantry, cellar, sheds, no strychnine, no suspicious tools. The garden's ornamental, tended by a local lad, no pest poisons kept on site. The Graysons' medicine cabinet held only Eleanor's tonic, tested and clean. Miss Marple nodded. Of course. A careful killer leaves no trace. Yet traces are not always vials or powders. They are glances, pauses, loyalties misplaced. Joyce shivered. You make it sound so hidden. Like the truth is right there, but we can't see it. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight. Truth, Miss Lempriere, is often hidden in plain sight. We must look to the dining room, yes, but also to the hearts of those who served it. For one of them, I think, saw more than they say, or did more than they admit. Sir Henry watched. Her, a smile tugging at his lips. You're weaving a tight net, Miss Marple. Where do we cast it next? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. To the edges, Sir Henry. To the moments before and after the soup. To the loyalties that bind these three, and to the master they serve. For somewhere, in a word or a silence, the truth waits. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation. The servants' secrets now vivid portraits in their minds. A proud cook, a trembling maid, a silent butler, each a piece of the puzzle. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a compass in the maze of suspicion. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death was a knot tightening with each revelation, and the club was poised to unravel its next thread. Chapter 8. The Widow's Charm. The fire in Miss Jane Marple's drawing-room glowed with a steady warmth, its embers casting a soft light that danced across the chintz curtains and polished furniture of her St. Mary Mead cottage. The November night pressed against the windows, a silent witness to the unfolding mystery that held the Tuesday night club in its grip. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her frail frame draped in a lavender shawl, her knitting needles resting in, her lap like a dormant talisman, her eyes bright with the quiet intensity of a mind honed by years of observation, flickered from face to face, reading the unspoken currents of curiosity and suspicion among her companions. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair catching the firelight, leaned forward with the air of a man who relished the unravelling of a complex puzzle. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had guided the club through the Grayson household secrets, and now he turned to a figure whose presence loomed large in the whispers of Danemouth. "We've probed the servants' lives," he said, his voice rich with purpose, "and we've weighed Philip Grayson's account. But there's a name that keeps circling this tragedy like a moth to a flame. Mrs. Clara Wentworth, the widow whose charm has set tongues wagging. Her role, if she has one, may illuminate the shadows of Greystone Hall. Joyce Lempriere, her artist's soul ever drawn to the dramatic, perched on her stool, her dark curls framing a face alight with anticipation. Clara Wentworth! Oh, Sir Henry, she sounds like a siren, weaving spells over men. Is she as captivating as they say? Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with scepticism, adjusted his spectacles. Captivating or not, we need substance, not gossip. What's her connection to the Graysons' Clithering? Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat rigidly, her hands clasped in disapproval. A widow with charm is a dangerous creature. If she's entangled with Mr. Grayson, she has much to answer for. Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. Danger, Mrs. Price, often wears a pleasing mask. In my village, a young widow once charmed the parish with her smiles, yet her heart was set on a fortune, not love. Let us hear of Mrs. Wentworth, Sir Henry, and listen not only to her actions, but to the ripples they create. Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with appreciation for her insight. Well said, Miss Marple. Clara Wentworth is a woman who commands attention, no question. 35, with golden hair and a figure that turns heads, she's the sort who walks into a room and makes it brighter. She's been in Danemouth 6 months, having returned from a year in Paris after her husband's death. A naval officer left her a modest inheritance. She's taken a neat little house, Rose Cottage, and thrown herself into the social whirl. Teas, concerts, charity bazaars. Her wit and her pianoforte playing are the talk of the town. Joyce's imagination flared. She sounds enchanting, like a heroine from a romance, trailing mystery and allure. How did she know the Graysons? The tea. Henry's tone grew cautious. She met Philip through mutual acquaintances at a dinner in London some months back. They struck up a friendship. Concerts, a supper or two, always in public, mind you. The police heard of it, of course, with the gossip swirling. Clara insists it was platonic, a shared love of music and conversation. Philip, as we know, called her a friend, nothing more. Dr. Haydock grunted, his medical mind unimpressed by romance. Friendship, eh? A married man dining with a widow raises eyebrows. Did Eleanor know of these outings? Sir Henry nodded. The police believe she did, though there's no record of a confrontation. Lily, the maid, said Eleanor was quieter in recent months, less inclined to host or attend events. Whether that was due to Clara or her own health, no one can say. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. A wife's silence is no excuse for a husband's indiscretion. If Mrs. Wentworth encouraged him, she's as culpable as he. Was she ever at Greystone Hall? Sir Henry shook his head, only once, briefly, to leave a card for a charity event months before the tragedy. Lily answered the door, said Clara was polite, stayed less than a minute. Eleanor was out, Philip at work. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping. A brief visit yet remembered. In St. Mary Mead, a stranger's call at a house was enough to spark a week's gossip, but it often meant nothing. Tell me, Sir Henry, what is Mrs. Wentworth's life in Danemouth? Her friends? Her habits? Does she stand alone, or is she woven into the town's fabric? Sir Henry painted a vivid picture. Clara's a social butterfly, never short of invitations. She hosts small gatherings at Rose Cottage. Tea, music, cards. with a knack for making guests feel special. Her closest allies are Miss Daphne Crane, a sharp-tongued spinster who dabbles in local politics, and Mrs. Violet Harrowby, the mayor's wife, who fancies herself a patron of the arts. Both spoke to the police, praising Clara's grace, but hinting at her ambition. Daphne called her a woman who knows her worth. Violet said she aims high, always has. Joyce's eyes sparkled. Ambition, that's telling. A woman like that might see Philip as a prize, wealthy, charming, and soon to inherit Eleanor's fortune. Dr. Haydock frowned. A prize worth killing for? That's a stretch. If she wanted Philip, why poison Eleanor's soup and risk suspicion falling on them both? Mrs. Price nodded. Unless they planned it together, a wicked pact to clear the way. Miss Marple's voice, soft as a breeze, cut through the speculation. A pact, Mrs. Price, requires trust, and trust between lovers is a fragile thing. In my village, a couple swore to elope, but one betrayed the other for a better prospect. We must ask, what does Mrs. Wentworth gain, and what does she risk? Sir Henry, how did she behave when questioned by the police? Her words, her manner, what did they reveal? Sir Henry's brow furrowed, following her thread. Clara was the model of composure, the police said. She received them at Rose Cottage, dressed simply, her voice low and steady. She expressed shock at Eleanor's death, offered condolences, said she barely knew her, but admired Philip's legal mind. When asked about their friendship, she was candid, admitted the dinners, the concerts, but insisted they were innocent. Mr. Grayson is a gentleman, she said, and I am no homewrecker. No tears, no nerves, just a quiet dignity. Joyce sighed. Dignity! She sounds too perfect, like a portrait painted to flatter. Could she be hiding something? Dr. Haydock grunted. Everyone hides something, but murder? She wasn't in the house that night, and strychnine's not a woman's usual weapon. Too messy, too traceable. Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened. A woman's weapon is her charm, Doctor. She might have persuaded another to act, Philip, or even a servant. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, though her face remained serene. Charm, Mrs. Price, is a tool, not a motive. In St. Mary Mead, a young lady charmed half the parish into funding her choir. But it was her brother who pocketed the funds. We must look to Clara's world, Sir Henry. Her finances, her past. Does she have debts or enemies who might use her? Name? Sir Henry nodded. The police checked her finances. Her inheritance is modest, enough for Rose Cottage, gowns, a maid, but no extravagance. No debts, no lawsuits, no jilted lovers in Paris or elsewhere. Her past is clean, or at least well scrubbed. Joyce's imagination flared again. Scrubbed? That's suspicious in itself. A woman like that, with no enemies, she's too careful. Dr. Haydock chuckled. Careful's not a crime, Miss Lempriere, but I'll grant you, her poise is unnerving. Did the police search her home for poison? Sir Henry confirmed it. They did. Every drawer, every bottle. Nothing but lavender water and a few headache powders, all harmless. Her garden's roses and herbs, no pest poisons. The local chemist swears she never bought anything suspect. Miss Marple's fingers traced the edge of her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. A clean house, a clean past, yet strychnine found its way to Greystone Hall. In St. Mary Mead, a farmer's wife kept rat poison in a tin labelled flour, thinking it safe. Such mistakes or deceptions are not uncommon. Did Clara ever speak of Eleanor, Sir Henry, beyond her condolences? Sir Henry shook his head. Only to say she met her once at a bazaar. Eleanor was polite, Clara said, but reserved. Clara offered a smile, a word about the weather, and moved on. No tension, she claimed. Joyce's voice was hushed. No tension, but Eleanor was reserved. Did she sense Clara's interest in Philip? Mrs. Price nodded. A wife knows, even if she says nothing. If Eleanor suspected, it might have driven her to despair. Dr. Haydock frowned. Despair, perhaps, but strychnine's no suicide's choice. It's a murderer's tool, and Clara's too far from the dining room to wield it. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her. Distance, Dr. Haydock, is a matter of perspective. A woman's influence can reach beyond walls. In St. Mary Mead, a lady's letter turned a man's heart without her ever stepping into his home. We must ask, is Clara the actor or the stage? Sir Henry, what of her social circle? Did her friends notice a change after Eleanor's death? Sir Henry's tone grew thoughtful. Miss Crane said Clara was quieter, cancelled a tea or two, citing a cold. Mrs. Harrowby said she seemed subdued but composed, still playing her part in society. The police saw it as natural, given the scandal. Joyce shivered. Subdued but not grieving. She's playing a role, I'm sure of it. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. A role indeed. A woman who dines with a married man has no innocence to claim. Dr. Haydock grunted. Innocence or not, we need evidence. She's a suspect only if we can place her near the poison or the motive. Miss Marple's voice was gentle but firm. Motive, Dr. Haydock, is a chameleon. It may wear the colours of love, greed, or fear. Clara's charm draws eyes, but whose eyes? Philip's or another's who wished to cast her as the villain. Sir Henry, did Philip defend her fiercely, or merely dismiss the gossip? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. He dismissed it, called it cruel but irrelevant. Said his focus was justice for Eleanor, not rumours about Clara. The police noted his restraint, almost too careful, they thought. Joyce's eyes widened. Careful? He's protecting her, or himself. They're in it together, I wager. Dr. Haydock shook his head. Together or not, the poison's the problem. Clara's nowhere near the soup, and Philip's too smart to leave traces. We're chasing shadows. Mrs. Price nodded. Shadows, perhaps, but shadows cast by sin. We must look to their hearts. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight. Hearts, Mrs. Price, are the map of this mystery. Clara's charm, Philip's grief, the servant's silence, they are all points on that map. In St. Mary Mead, a widow's smile once hid a theft, but it was her maid who paid the price. We must look to the edges, Sir Henry. To Clara's quiet, moments to Philip's careful words, to the dining room where a bowl became a weapon. Sir Henry watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. You're spinning a fine web, Miss Marple. Where do we cast it next? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. To the centre, Sir Henry. To the table where Eleanor died, and the hands that served her. For Clara's charm may be a light or a veil, and we must see what it hides. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation. Clara Wentworth's charm, now a vivid presence in their minds. A widow of grace, ambition, and perhaps secrets. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a beacon in the fog of suspicion. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death was a knot tightening with each revelation, and the club was poised to unravel its next strand. Chapter 9. The Village Parallel. The fire in Miss Jane Marple's drawing room cast a gentle glow, its embers weaving a tapestry of light and shadow across the cosy confines of her St. Mary Mead cottage. The November night pressed against the windows, a silent conspirator in the mystery that held the Tuesday night club captive. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her frail figure draped in a lavender shawl, her knitting needles dormant in her lap, as if paused in deference to the gravity of the tale. Her eyes, sharp and luminous beneath their gentle veneer, darted from face to face, reading the unspoken currents of intrigue and suspicion among her companions. The Grayson case had spun a web of questions, and each revelation tightened its threads. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair gleaming in the firelight, leaned back with the air of a man savouring the complexity of a puzzle. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had guided the club through the widow Wentworth's charm, and now he paused, sensing a shift in the room's mood. "We've dissected the dining room, the servants and the whispers of scandal," he said, his voice rich with anticipation. "But I suspect Miss Marple has something up her sleeve, a perspective, perhaps, that ties this tragedy to her own. Keen observations. What say you, Miss Marple? Where do we turn next?" Joyce Lempriere, her artist's imagination alight, perched on her stool, her dark curls framing a face flushed with excitement. "Oh, Miss Marple, you always have a story. Something from the village, I bet, that makes it all click. Is it about poison or a husband's betrayal?" Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with curiosity, adjusted his spectacles. "Story, eh? I'd wager it's one of your parallels, Miss Marple. Some village tale that mirrors the Graysons. Let's hear it." Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat stiffly, her hands clasped in cautious approval. "If it sheds light on this wickedness, I'm all ears. But let it be a lesson in virtue, not folly." Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile, her voice soft as a whisper, yet carrying the weight of authority. "A lesson, Mrs. Price, is what we make of it. In my village, I have seen the small dramas of life, greed, love, deceit, played out in quiet corners, and they are not so different from the grand stages of Danemouth. The Grayson case, with its poisoned, soup and careful husband, reminds me of a tale from St. Mary Mead, one that may guide our thoughts. But first, Sir Henry, let us be clear. What puzzles you most about Philip Grayson's role?" Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with appreciation for her deft redirection. Philip's the enigma, no doubt. His untouched soup, his polished grief, his dismissal of Clara Wentworth's gossip, all too neat, yet no evidence pins him to the poison. The police are stumped, and I confess, I'm curious to see where your village wisdom leads us. Joyce clapped her hands. "A village tale! I knew it. Tell us, Miss Marple, who's the villain in your story?" Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping, her tone measured yet vivid. "Not a villain, Miss Lempriere, but a man whose actions cast a long shadow. Let me take you back some 15 years, to a summer in St. Mary Mead when the village buzzed with the sudden death of Mrs. Eliza Trent, wife of Mr. Arthur Trent, a prosperous farmer. Eliza was a robust woman, fond of her garden and her jams, but one morning she was found dead in her bed, her face peaceful, her heart, they said, simply stopped. Dr. Haydock's medical mind perked up. Heart failure? Natural or something else? Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. That was the question, Dr. Haydock. The village doctor, old Dr. Sims, certified it as natural. A weak heart, he said, though Eliza had never complained of one. But I noticed things, small things, that troubled me. Arthur Trent was quick to mourn. Too quick, some whispered. He wore black, spoke of his loss, yet his eyes were restless, and within weeks he was seen walking with Miss Clara Bell, a dressmaker's assistant, young and comely, who'd caught his eye long before Eliza's death. Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened, her voice sharp. A widower courting so soon? Shameless! Was there talk of foul play? Miss Marple nodded. Talk, yes, but no proof. Eliza's death was too tidy. No convulsions, no poison, just a quiet end. Yet I watched Arthur, and I saw a man who moved with purpose. He sold a parcel of land soon after, bought a new cart, and by autumn he was engaged to Clara Bell. The village gossiped, but I looked closer, at Eliza's habits, her home, her husband's ways. Joyce's imagination flared, her voice trembling with excitement. You suspected him, didn't you? Did he poison her, like Philip might have poisoned Eleanor? Miss Marple's smile was faint, almost wistful. Patience, Miss Lempriere. Let me tell you what I found. Eliza was fond of a nightly posset, a warm milk drink laced with honey and a drop of her husband's homemade cider. Arthur prepared it himself, a ritual he called his care for her. The night she died, he'd brought her the posset as usual, sat with her, then retired to his study. The maid, Jenny, found the empty mug by Eliza's bed, washed it without a thought, and life went on. Dr. Haydock frowned, his medical curiosity piqued. A posset? Could it have carried poison? Something subtle, not strychnine? Miss Marple's eyes gleamed. I wondered that myself. Eliza's garden held foxglove, a plant whose leaves, if steeped, can stop a heart. No one tested the mug, of course. It was gone before suspicion stirred. But I spoke to Jenny, the maid, who let slip that Arthur had been particular about the posset that week, insisting on fresh cider from a cask he kept locked. Jenny thought it devotion. I thought it control. Sir Henry leaned forward, his voice low. You're suggesting he dosed her, Miss Marple. A slow poison, perhaps, to mimic a natural death. Miss Marple's tone was measured. I suggest nothing, Sir Henry, but I observe. Arthur was a man who knew his wife's habits, her trust in that posset, her love of routine. He was careful, too, in his grief. He wept at the funeral, gave alms to the church, yet his haste to court Clara Bell betrayed him. I spoke to the sexton, who'd seen Arthur digging in the garden the week before Eliza's death, near the foxglove patch. No one else thought it odd. Farmers dig, after all. But I did. Joyce's breath caught. Foxglove! That's deadly, isn't it? Did you prove it? Miss Marple's expression grew sombre. Proof, my dear, is a luxury we seldom have. I had no evidence, only a pattern. Arthur married Clara Bell, moved to a neighbouring village and lived quietly. But years later, Clara confided to a friend that Arthur kept a locked box in his study, and she was forbidden to touch. She never opened it, but I wonder always what it held. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. A locked box. The mark of a guilty conscience. This Trent sounds like Philip Grayson. Charming, careful, and cruel. Dr. Haydock nodded. The parallels striking. Philip's untouched soup, his polished grief, his quick dismissal of Clara Wentworth. It's Arthur Trent all over again, but with strychnine instead of foxglove. But how did Philip do it, Miss Marple? The bowls, the poison, where's the trick? Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her, her voice soft yet piercing. The trick, Dr. Haydock, is in the ordinary. Arthur Trent used a posset, a nightly ritual to veil his act. Philip Grayson had a dining room, a routine of soup and wine, a wife who ate first. In St. Mary Mead, I've seen how routine blinds us, how a wife trusts her husband's hand, how a servant follows orders without question. Philip's untouched soup is no accident, but a signal. He knew, I think, what was in Eleanor's bowl. Joyce's eyes widened, her voice a whisper. You're saying he poisoned her right there at the table? But how? Lily served the bowls. Harrow poured the wine. Everyone was watching. Sir Henry's brow furrowed, his tone thoughtful. That's the crux, Miss Marple. The police found no strychnine in Philip's possession, no moment when he could have tampered with the bowl. Lily ladled the soup in plain sight, and the tureen was clean. It's a locked room of sorts. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight, her tone musing. A locked room, Sir Henry, is only locked until you find the key. In St. Mary Mead, a locked door once hid a theft, but the key was a child's hairpin, slipped through a crack. Philip's key, I suspect, is in the rhythm of that dinner. The napkin he adjusted, the glance he gave, the moment he chose to speak. Did he describe the dining room's mood, Sir Henry, beyond Eleanor's quietness? Sir Henry nodded, his voice precise. He did, in detail. Said the room was warm, the chandelier bright, the table set with care. He noted Lily's quick steps, Harrow's steady hand with the decanter. He spoke of Eleanor's dress, a pale, blue silk, one of her favourites, and how she smiled faintly when he mentioned a trip to the coast. He said it felt like any other night, until it wasn't. Joyce sighed. He paints it so vividly, like a man cherishing the memory or crafting it. Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened. Crafting, indeed. A man who notices every detail, yet misses his wife's suffering, is no husband. Was he so attentive after her death? Sir Henry's tone grew wry. Attentive, yes, but controlled. He met with the police daily, pressed for progress, offered theories about his enemies, clients he'd crossed in court, none with clear ties to strychnine. He avoided talk of Clara Wentworth, except to deny any impropriety. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin, his medical mind racing. Enemies, again. It's a distraction, I'd wager. Like your Arthur Trent, Miss Marple. Philip's pointing us away from the truth. But the poison, how did it reach Eleanor's bowl without a trace? Miss Marple's voice was gentle, but firm. The how, Dr. Haydock, is a matter of opportunity. The why is a matter of heart. Arthur Trent wanted Clara Bell and a new life. Philip Grayson may have wanted freedom or wealth or both. Eleanor's fortune, Sir Henry. Did it come with conditions, or was it his upon her death? Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, following her logic. It was hers outright, from her father's shipping business. No conditions, no entailments. Philip inherited it all, cash, investments, a tidy sum. He's well off himself, but the extra wealth doesn't hurt, especially for a man with ambitions. Joyce's imagination flared. Ambitions, like a life, with Clara Wentworth, in London or Paris. He did it for her, I'm sure. Mrs. Price nodded. A fortune and a widow, motives as old as sin. But the servants, Miss Marple? Could one have helped him, knowingly or not? Miss Marple's expression grew thoughtful. Knowingly, I doubt. Lily's fear, Mrs. Bates's pride, Harrow's silence, they are loyal, but not, I think, complicit, yet unknowingly. In St. Mary Mead, a maid once carried a letter that ruined a marriage, thinking it harmless. Philip's routine, his charm, may have made his servants blind to his sleight of hand. Dr. Haydock grunted. Sleight of hand, eh? You're suggesting he tampered with the bowl himself, under their noses? That takes nerve. Sir Henry leaned forward, his voice low. Nerve and precision. The police saw no moment for it. Lily, at the sideboard, Harrow with the wine, Eleanor watching. Yet you see it, Miss Marple. Where's the gap? Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, her tone almost musing. The gap, Sir Henry, is in the ordinary. A napkin unfolded, a word spoken, a moment when eyes turn away. In St. Mary Mead, a shopkeeper switched a package while chatting about the weather, and no one noticed. Philip's dining room was a stage, and he knew its every cue. Did he touch anything, Sir Henry, beyond his napkin? A spoon, a glass, the table itself? Sir Henry's brow furrowed, his memory straining. The police asked that. Harrow said. Philip's hands stayed on his napkin or rested on the table's edge. Lily was too focused on serving to notice. Philip himself said he was still, waiting for Eleanor to eat, as was their custom. Joyce shivered. Their custom? It's like he set her up, knowing she'd take the first bite. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her. Custom, Miss Lempriere, is a trap for the trusting. Arthur Trent used Eliza's posset. Philip used Eleanor's soup. The parallel lies not in the poison, but in the heart that plans it. We must look to Philip's world, Sir Henry, his cases, his travels, his silences. For if he is our farmer, his harvest is Eleanor's death. Sir Henry watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. You're weaving a tight net, Miss Marple. Where do we cast it next? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. To the dining room, Sir Henry, and beyond. To the hands that served, the eyes that watched, and the heart that chose. For Arthur Trent's shadow falls on Philip Grayson, and we must find where it darkens. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation, the village parallel now a vivid mirror in their minds. A farmer's haste, a husband's charm, a wife's trust betrayed. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a beacon in the fog of suspicion. The mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death was a knot tightening with each tale, and the club was poised to unravel its next strand. Chapter 10. The Final Clue. The drawing-room of Miss Jane Marple's cottage in St. Mary Mead glowed with the soft warmth of a dying fire, its embers casting a delicate interplay of light and shadow across the chintz curtains and polished oak furniture. The November night clung to the windows. a silent partner in the mystery that had ensnared the Tuesday night club. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her slight frame draped in a lavender shawl, her knitting needles resting untouched, in her lap, as if in quiet reverence for the puzzle unfolding. Her eyes, sharp and luminous beneath their gentle exterior, darted from face to face, catching the flickers of curiosity, doubt, and anticipation in her companion's expressions. The Grayson case, with its poisoned soup and elusive truth, had woven a web that tightened with each revelation. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair gleaming in the firelight, leaned forward with the air of a man who sensed the climax of a tale. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had guided the club through the servants' secrets, the widow's charm, and Miss Marple's village parallel, and now he poised to draw the threads closer. "We've circled the dining room, the Graysons, and every whisper in Danemouth," he said, his voice rich with purpose. "But the poison in Eleanor's bowl remains a riddle. Miss Marple, I suspect you've been gathering clues in that quiet way of yours. What's the final piece you're chasing?" Joyce Lempriere, her artist's imagination alight, perched on her stool, her dark curls framing a face flushed with excitement. "Oh, Miss Marple, it's like the last stroke of a painting. You've got something, haven't you? A detail that makes it all clear." Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with concentration, adjusted his spectacles. "A detail, yes. The poison's the key, but how it reached that bowl, that's what I want. Give us your clue, Miss Marple." Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat rigidly, her hands clasped in cautious hope. "If it points to the guilty, I pray it's clear. This wickedness must not go unpunished." Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile, her voice soft, yet carrying the weight of certainty. "Punishment, Mrs. Price, comes in time, but truth comes first. In my village, I've learned that the smallest moment, a glance, a gesture, can unlock a mystery. The Grayson case is no different. It's not the poison itself, but the hands that placed it, and the eyes that looked away. Sir Henry, let us return to the dining room, to the moment of the soup course. I have a question or two, if you'll indulge me." Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with admiration for her precision. "Indulge you? I'd be a fool not to. Ask away, Miss Marple. The dining room's yours to dissect." He settled back, his hands clasped, ready to recount every detail the Danemouth police had gathered. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping, her tone measured yet vivid. "The dining room at Greystone Hall, as you've described. It is a stage of light and order. Chandelier blazing, table gleaming, lily serving, harrow pouring, Philip and Eleanor at their places. Let us picture it. The tureen on the sideboard, 10 feet from Philip's seat, Lily ladling the soup into 2 identical porcelain bowls, placing Eleanor's first, then Philip's. Harrow pours the wine, stands by the sideboard, watchful. Philip adjusts his napkin, speaks lightly of the weather, and Eleanor takes her fatal spoonfuls. This is the moment, Sir Henry. Tell me, how was the table arranged? The settings, cutlery, glasses, napkins, were they precise or casual?" Sir Henry's brow furrowed, sensing the weight of her question. "Precise, as you'd expect in a barrister's home." The police reports were clear. Each place had a silver soup spoon to the right, a fork and knife for the lamb, a crystal wine goblet, a water glass, and a linen napkin folded neatly to the left. Eleanor's setting matched Philip's, down to the monogrammed napkin rings. Lily set the table an hour before. Harrow checked it. This was their routine. Joyce's eyes widened. So formal. Like a ritual, every piece in place. Could the poison have been in the spoon, not the bowl? Dr. Haydock shook his head, his medical mind quick to respond. Unlikely. Strychnine's bitter, and a spoon's surface wouldn't hold enough for a lethal dose without coating it visibly. The police tested the spoon, didn't they, Clithering? Sir Henry nodded. They did. The spoon, the bowl, even the napkin. Only the soup in Eleanor's bowl held the poison. The rest was clean, as was Philip's entire setting. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, her tone almost musing. Clean, yes. A careful stage, with no room for error. In St. Mary Mead, a hostess once swapped teacups as a jest, and no one noticed because the table was so orderly, the routine so fixed. Let us consider Philip's actions, Sir Henry. You said he adjusted his napkin, unfolded it, laid it in his lap. Did he touch anything else? The table, his glass, Eleanor's bowl, perhaps? Sir Henry's memory strained, his voice precise. Harrow told the police Philip's hand stayed on his napkin, or rested briefly on the table's edge near his own setting. Lily was too busy serving to notice. Philip himself said he was still, waiting for Eleanor to eat first, as she always did. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. Waiting, indeed. A husband who lets his wife eat poison while he sits idle is no gentleman. Joyce's imagination flared. He was waiting for her to die. He knew Miss Marple, didn't he? That's your clue. Dr. Haydock frowned, his scepticism intact. Knew, perhaps, but how did he do it? Lily ladled the soup in plain sight, under the chandelier's light. He'd need a magician's trick to slip strychnine into her bowl without being seen. Miss Marple's fingers brushed her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. A trick, Dr. Haydock, or a moment. Let us think of the sideboard, where Lily stood facing the room, her back to the mirror. Philip, at the head of the table, could see her, yes? And Eleanor, to his right. Could she see the sideboard clearly, or was her view partial? Sir Henry's brow furrowed, following her logic. Eleanor's seat faced Philip, with the sideboard at an angle to her left. She could see Lily, but not as directly as Philip, who had a clear line of sight. The mirror on the wall reflected the room, but Lily's back blocked most of it. Miss Marple nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. A clear line for Philip, a partial one for Eleanor, and Harrow, by the sideboard, pouring the wine. Where was his attention? On the decanter or the table? Sir Henry's tone grew thoughtful. Harrow said he focused on the wine, pouring carefully, then stepped back to watch the Graysons. He glanced at Lily as she served, but his eyes were mostly on Philip and Eleanor, waiting for their signal to clear or serve the next course. Joyce's voice trembled with excitement. So there was a moment. When Lily was ladling, Harrow pouring, Eleanor looking at Philip, nobody watching the bowls. Mrs. Price nodded. A moment for wickedness. But how did the poison get there? Philip was seated 10 feet away. Dr. Haydock grunted. Exactly. He couldn't reach the sideboard without standing, and that would have been noticed. The poison had to be in the bowl before Lily served. It or added after. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight, her tone soft yet piercing. After, I think, Dr. Haydock. The tureen was clean, the ladle untouched, the kitchen spotless. The poison entered the bowl in the dining room, under the chandelier's light, in a room full of eyes. In St. Mary Mead, a shopkeeper once slipped a coin into a customer's change while chatting, and no one saw because it was so ordinary. Philip's napkin, his pause, his stillness, they are ordinary, but deliberate. Tell me, Sir Henry, how close were the bowls when served? Did Lily carry them together, or one at a time? Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, sensing the crux of her question. One at a time, the police said. Lily placed Eleanor's bowl first, stepped back to the sideboard, then carried Philip's. The sideboard's close to the table, 2 steps no more. She set Eleanor's bowl, walked back, then brought Philip's, all in a matter of seconds. Joyce clapped her hands. Seconds! That's it! Philip could have done something while Lily turned away. Dr. Haydock's scepticism held firm. Done what? Sprinkled strychnine from his pocket? He'd need to lean across the table, and Eleanor would have seen. Harrow, too, was right there, pouring wine. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. Unless Harrow looked away, distracted by his decanter. A butler's duty is to watch, not to pour blindly. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her, her voice gentle but firm. Distraction, Mrs. Price, is a murderer's ally. In St. Mary Mead, a farmer distracted his wife with a tale of lost sheep, while he hid a stolen watch. Philip's napkin, his talk of the weather, his waiting for Eleanor to eat, these are distractions, small but precise. Let us consider the table's edge, where his hands rested. Could he have reached Eleanor's bowl, Sir Henry, without rising? Sir Henry's memory strained, his tone cautious. The table's wide, but Eleanor's place was close to his right, perhaps 2 feet from his hand. A lean, a stretch, might have brought his fingers near her bowl, but it's a risk. Eleanor was facing him, and Lily was steps away, turning back with his bowl. Harrow's eyes were on the table too. Joyce's imagination flared. A risk, but he's a barrister. He's used to performing swaying juries. He could have done it in a heartbeat while they looked elsewhere. Dr. Haydock frowned, his medical mind grappling with logistics. A heartbeat's not enough. Strychnine's a powder or crystal. It needs to be dropped, stirred, something. The soup would ripple, or the poison would sit on top, noticeable. Eleanor tasted it, yes, but she ate several spoonfuls before reacting. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, her tone almost musing. Several spoonfuls, Dr. Haydock. Yet she paused, her brow furrowed as if the taste was off. Perhaps the poison was not stirred but sank, waiting for her spoon to find it. Sir Henry leaned forward, his voice low. You're saying he dropped it, Miss Marple? In that fleeting moment, with Lily turning, Harrow pouring, Eleanor looking at him? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. I'm saying, Sir Henry, that Philip Grayson is a man who knows his stage. In St. Mary Mead, a tailor once slipped a pin into a rival's hem while measuring cloth, and no one saw because it was his trade. Philip's trade is control, of words, of moments, of people. His hand on the table, his napkin unfolded, his wife's trust, these were his tools. Joyce shivered, her voice a whisper. It's chilling. He sat there smiling, knowing she'd die. Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened. A monster, if true. But where's the proof? The police found no poison on him, no vial in his pocket. Dr. Haydock nodded. That's the hitch. A barrister doesn't carry strychnine to dinner, not unless he's a fool, and Philip's no fool. Miss Marple's fingers traced the edge of her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. A fool, no, but a planner, yes. In St. Mary Mead, a chemist hid laudanum in a sugar tin, thinking it safe. Philip's study, his chambers, his travels. Strychnine might have come from a case, a client, a quiet purchase long ago. The police searched Greystone Hall, Sir Henry. But did they search his London rooms, his briefcase, his past? Sir Henry's brow furrowed. They did, thoroughly. His chambers were clean, his briefcase held only papers. His cases showed no clear link to poison. He's a step ahead, if he's guilty. Miss Marple nodded slowly. A step ahead, but not invisible. The final clue, Sir Henry, is in the timing. Philip waited for Lily to serve, for Harrow to pour, for Eleanor to eat. He knew the rhythm of that dinner, as Arthur Trent knew his wife's posset. The poison was in Eleanor's bowl, because Philip ensured it was there. In a moment so ordinary it passed unseen. Joyce's eyes widened. You mean he planned it all? The napkin, the pause, everything. Miss Marple's voice was gentle, but firm. Planning, Miss Lempriere, is the murderer's art. In St. Mary Mead, a wife planned her husband's birthday with such care that no one saw her slip a letter to her lover. Philip's dining room was his canvas, and he painted it with precision. We must look to that moment, Sir Henry, and to the man who shaped it. Sir Henry watched her, a smile tugging at his lips. You've found your clue, Miss Marple. Where do we look next? Her gaze was steady, almost luminous. To the heart, Sir Henry. To Philip's hands, his eyes, his silences. For the final clue is not the poison, but the choice to use it. And that choice lies with him. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed anticipation. The dining room's fatal moment now a vivid tableau in their minds. A husband's pause, a wife's trust, a bowl of death. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a beacon in the fog of suspicion, as the mystery of Eleanor Grayson's death drew ever closer to its truth. Chapter 11. The Solution. The fire in Miss Jane Marple's drawing-room had settled into a soft glow, its embers casting a delicate interplay of light and shadow across the cosy confines of her St. Mary Mead cottage. The November night pressed against the windows, a silent witness to the mystery that had held the Tuesday night club in its thrall. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her frail figure draped in a lavender shawl, her knitting needles dormant in her lap, as if in quiet deference to the gravity of the moment. Her eyes, sharp and luminous beneath their gentle exterior, gleamed with the quiet certainty of a mind that had unravelled the threads of a complex puzzle. The Grayson case, with its poisoned soup and elusive truth, had reached its crescendo, and the club leaned forward, their faces a tableau of anticipation, doubt, and awe. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver hair catching the firelight, leaned back, with the air of a man who sensed the curtain rising on the final act. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had guided the club through the dining room's fatal moment, the servants' secrets, and Miss Marple's village parallel. And now he turned to her with a spark of expectation. "You've led us to the edge, Miss Marple," he said, his voice rich with admiration. "Your final clue, the timing, the hands, the choice, has set the stage. I think you've solved it, haven't you? Give us the truth of Eleanor Grayson's death." Joyce Lempriere, her artist's imagination alight, perched on her stool, her dark curls framing a face flushed with excitement. "Oh, Miss Marple, it's like the last page of a novel. You know who did it, don't you? Is it Philip or Clara, or someone we've missed?" Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with concentration, adjusted his spectacles. "I'm betting on Philip, but the how, that's what's got me. The poison, the bowl, the moment. Lay it out, Miss Marple." Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat rigidly, her hands clasped in solemn hope. "If justice is served, I pray it's clear. This wickedness must be named." Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile, her voice soft yet carrying the weight of conviction. "Justice, Mrs. Price, is a light that shines through truth. In my village, I've learned that human nature is the key to every mystery. Its desires, its deceptions, its silences. The Grayson case is no different. Eleanor died because someone chose her death, and that choice was made in the dining room, under the chandelier's light. Let us walk through it, step by step, and see where the truth lies." Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "The floor is yours, Miss Marple. Take us to Greystone Hall, to the soup course, and show us the killer." He settled back, his hands clasped, ready to witness her unravelling of the case. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping, her tone measured yet vivid. "Picture the dining room at Greystone Hall, as we've built it in our minds. The table, polished mahogany, set for two. Philip at the head, Eleanor to his right. The chandelier blazes, no shadows to hide in. Lily Carter, the maid, stands at the sideboard, 10 feet away, ladling cream of mushroom soup from a silver tureen into 2 identical porcelain bowls. She places Eleanor's first, 2 steps to the table, then returns for Philip's. Thomas Harrow, the butler, pours the wine, his eyes on the decanter, then on the Graysons. Philip adjusts his napkin, speaks of the weather, and Eleanor takes her first spoonfuls. Moments later, she collapses, strychnine in her bowl, and hers alone. Joyce's breath caught, her voice trembling. "It's so precise. Like a dance, every step planned. But who poisoned the bowl?" Dr. Haydock nodded, his medical mind engaged. "The strychnine was in the soup, not the tureen, not the ladle, not Philip's bowl. Someone targeted Eleanor, or made it look that way. How, Miss Marple? That's the lock we can't pick." Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, her tone soft yet piercing. "The lock, Dr. Haydock, is in the rhythm of that dance. In St. Mary Mead, I once saw a seamstress slip a pin into a rival's hem while measuring cloth, unnoticed because it was her daily work. The dining room was Philip Grayson's domain, and he knew its every beat. Lily's steps, Harrow's glances, Eleanor's. Trust. The poison was not in the tureen, nor in the kitchen, nor in Lily's hands. It was in Eleanor's bowl, placed there by the one person who could ensure it reached her, Philip himself." Mrs. Price gasped, her voice sharp. "The husband! To poison his own wife at their table, it's monstrous." Joyce's eyes widened, her imagination alight. "Philip! I knew it. But how did he do it, Miss Marple? Everyone was watching." Sir Henry leaned forward, his voice low. "That's the crux, Miss Marple. The police saw no moment for it. Lily, serving, Harrow pouring, Eleanor facing him. Lay it out for us." Miss Marple's fingers brushed her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. Let us walk through the moment as it happened. Lily brings the tureen, sets it on the sideboard, and begins to ladle. Philip, seated, has a clear view of her, the mirror, the room. Eleanor, to his right, faces him, her view of the sideboard, angled, partial. Harrow, pouring the wine, focuses on his decanter, then on the Graysons. Philip unfolds his napkin, a gesture so ordinary it draws no eyes. He speaks, a light word about the weather, enough to hold Eleanor's attention, to make her smile. Lily places Eleanor's bowl 2 steps from the sideboard, sets it before her, and turns back for Philip's. In that moment, seconds no more, Philip acts. Dr. Haydock frowned, his scepticism intact. Acts how? He's seated 2 feet from her bowl, with Eleanor looking at him. He can't just sprinkle strychnine like salt. It'd be seen, or the soup would ripple. Miss Marple's smile was faint, almost wistful. Not sprinkled, Dr. Haydock, but dropped, carefully, precisely, in a way only a man of Philip's nerve could manage. In St. Mary Mead, a grocer once slipped a bad egg into a customer's basket while weighing apples, unnoticed because his hands were always moving. Philip's hands were on his napkin, or the table's edge near Eleanor's bowl. A tiny vial, a pinch of powder, hidden in his palm or sleeve, could be released in a heartbeat, as Lily turned, as Harrow poured, as Eleanor listened to his voice. Joyce shivered, her voice a whisper. A vial in his sleeve, like a magician, making it vanish. But where did he get strychnine? The police searched everywhere. Sir Henry nodded, his tone thoughtful. They did. His study, his chambers, his luggage. No trace of poison, no suspicious purchases. If he had it, he hid it well. Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight, her tone soft yet certain. Hidden, yes, but not impossible. In St. Mary Mead, a chemist kept laudanum in a tin labelled sugar, thinking it safe. Philip, a barrister, travels to London, meets clients, handles cases. Strychnine, though rare, is not beyond reach. A chemist's lapse, a client's gift, a relic from a case, tucked away in a locked drawer or a false-bottomed case. The police searched, but a careful man leaves no traces, only actions. Philip's action was to place the poison in Eleanor's bowl, knowing she would eat first, as she always did. Mrs. Price's disapproval deepened, her voice stern, knowing she'd die, and he'd watch. What kind of man does such a thing? Miss Marple's expression grew sombre. A man with a purpose, Mrs. Price. Philip's purpose, I believe, was freedom. Freedom from Eleanor. Freedom for Clara Wentworth. Or perhaps simply for her fortune. Eleanor's inheritance, Sir Henry. Was it substantial enough to tempt a man already wealthy? Sir Henry's brow furrowed, his voice precise. Substantial, yes. Cash, investments, a legacy from her father's shipping empire, hundreds of thousands, all to Philip upon her death. He's well off, but that kind of wealth opens doors. London houses, political ambitions, a life beyond Danemouth. Joyce clapped her hands, her imagination alight. Clara? He did it for her, to live with her in splendour. That's why he denied their affair. to keep her safe. Dr. Haydock grunted, his medical mind grappling with motive. Clara's a possibility, but why the public dinners? If they were plotting, they'd be discreet, not flaunting it in London. Miss Marple nodded, her tone musing. Discretion, Dr. Haydock, is not always the goal. In St. Mary Mead, a young man courted a girl openly to hide his theft from her father. Clara's presence, the gossip, may have been Philip's shield, a misdirection to make us think the poison was meant for him, not Eleanor. He didn't eat, you see, and that was no accident. Sir Henry leaned forward, his voice low. Misdirection, eh? You're saying he staged it, made it look like an attack on himself, knowing Eleanor would die? Miss Marple's gaze was steady, almost luminous. Precisely, Sir Henry. Philip is a barrister, a master of stories. He crafted one for the police. A devoted husband, a targeted man, a tragic mistake. His enemies, he said, clients, criminals, might have sought his life. But the poison was never meant for him. It was in Eleanor's bowl, placed by his hand, in a moment so swift it passed unseen. Joyce's eyes widened, her voice trembling. Swift, but how? Lily was there, Harrow was there, Eleanor was right beside him. Miss Marple's tone was gentle but firm. In St. Mary Mead, a tailor slipped a button into a rival's pocket while pinning a coat, and no one saw because it was his trade. Philip's trade is control of moments, of people, of trust. As Lily turned to fetch his bowl, as Harrow focused on the wine, as Eleanor listened to his voice, Philip's hand moved. Perhaps a lean, a flick of the wrist, a powder released from a hidden vial. The soup, warm and thick, swallowed the poison, sinking to the bottom, unnoticed until Eleanor's spoon stirred it. Dr. Haydock frowned, his scepticism lingering. A flick of the wrist, under their noses, that's a devil's nerve. And the vial? He'd have to dispose of it or risk it being found. Miss Marple's smile was faint, almost wistful. A barrister's nerve, Dr. Haydock, and a barrister's foresight. The vial, small, perhaps no larger than a thimble, could be slipped into a pocket, a napkin, even crushed underfoot in the chaos of Eleanor's collapse. The police searched, but a man who plans murder plans the aftermath. Philip's grief, his shock, his calls for help, they were his performance, as calculated as his act. Mrs. Price's voice was stern. A performance! To play the widower while his wife lies dead. It's beyond evil. But Clara Wentworth, Miss Marple, what of her? Was she his accomplice? Miss Marple's expression grew thoughtful. Clara, I think, was his muse, not his partner. Her charm, her presence, gave Philip a future to dream of. A life unencumbered by Eleanor's frailty, enriched by her fortune. But an accomplice? No. Clara's distance from the dining room, her clean home, her composure, they suggest a woman unaware, or carefully kept so. Philip needed her as a shadow, not a conspirator. Sir Henry's eyes gleamed, his voice low. So he acted alone. You're saying, poisoned Eleanor's bowl, watched her die, and played the victim to throw us off? Miss Marple nodded, her tone soft yet certain. Alone, Sir Henry, but with the household as his unwitting stagehands. Lily's routine, Harrow's duties, Eleanor's trust, they were his tools. In St. Mary Mead, a farmer planned his wife's theft, by knowing her market day, her basket, her habits. Philip knew his dining room, and he used it. Joyce shivered, her voice a whisper. It's terrifying. He sat there smiling, knowing she'd die. But the servants, Miss Marple, did they suspect nothing? Miss Marple's eyes softened, her tone gentle. Suspect no. See, perhaps. Lily's fear, Mrs. Bates's protectiveness, Harrow's silence. They saw their master, not a murderer. In St. Mary Mead, a maid once saw her master hide a letter, but thought it a game. Philip's charm blinded them, as it blinded Eleanor. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin, his medical mind still wrestling. It fits, but it's tight. The timing, the nerve, the disposal of the vial. It's a high-wire act. One slip, and he's caught. Miss Marple's smile was faint, almost wistful. Murderers, Dr. Haydock, are high-wire walkers. Philip's slip, if there is one, lies in his future. His haste to remarry, his use of Eleanor's fortune, his glances at Clara. The police must watch him, Sir Henry, for human nature betrays itself in time. Sir Henry leaned back, his smile broadening. You've done it, Miss Marple. A solution as neat as your knitting and twice as sharp. I'll pass this to the Danemouth police. Let them search Philip's past, his London haunts, his silences. Joyce clapped her hands, her voice bright. It's brilliant, like a picture, every line perfect. Mrs. Price nodded, her tone solemn. If true, may justice find him. A man who poisons his wife deserves no mercy. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her, her eyes gleaming in the firelight. Mercy, Mrs. Price, is not ours to give. Truth is our task. And truth, I think, lies in Philip Grayson's hands. Hands that held a napkin, a vial, and a wife's life. In St. Mary Mead, I've seen the smallest acts unravel the greatest lies. Let us trust that Danemouth will see it, too. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed awe, the solution to Eleanor Grayson's death now a vivid tapestry in their minds. A husband's betrayal, a bowl of poison, a moment of deadly precision. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a beacon in the fog of human deceit, as the mystery of Greystone Hall found its truth at last. Chapter 12. The Aftermath. The drawing-room of Miss Jane Marple's cottage in St. Mary Mead was a haven of quiet warmth, its fire reduced to a nest of glowing embers that cast a soft, flickering light across the chintz curtains and polished oak furniture. The November night clung to the windows, a silent sentinel to the mystery that had unfolded within these walls. Miss Marple sat in her high-backed armchair, her frail figure draped in a lavender shawl, her knitting needles resting in her lap like a silent vow of completion. Her eyes, sharp and luminous beneath their gentle exterior, held a quiet satisfaction, tempered by the weight of the truth she had unveiled. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed reverence, their faces a tableau of awe, reflection, and lingering unease, as the Grayson case reached its denouement. Sir Henry Clithering, his silver, hair gleaming in the firelight, leaned back with the air of a man who had witnessed a masterstroke. The former Scotland Yard Commissioner had followed Miss Marple's unravelling of the poisoned soup's mystery, and now he regarded her with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "You've done it, Miss Marple," he said, his voice rich with respect. "You've laid bare Philip Grayson's crime with the precision of a surgeon's knife. But what comes next? The police have no evidence, only your logic. How do we bring justice to Greystone Hall?" Joyce Lempriere, her artist's imagination still alight, perched on her stool, her dark curls framing a face flushed with wonder. "It's like the end of a play, Miss Marple. Philip, the villain, unmasked. But will he face the curtain? What happens now?" Dr. Lloyd Haydock, his ruddy cheeks creased with thought, adjusted his spectacles. "Logic's one thing, proof's another. The police can't arrest a man for adjusting his napkin. Where do we go from here?" Mrs. Martha Price, the vicar's wife, sat rigidly, her hands clasped in solemn conviction. "Justice must prevail, or this wickedness will taint us all. Miss Marple, what is to be done?" Miss Marple's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile, her voice soft, yet carrying the weight of experience. "Justice, Mrs. Price, is a patient hunter, stalking its prey through the shadows of human nature. In my village, I've seen truths emerge not in a single moment, but in the slow unravelling of lives. Philip Grayson's crime is clear to us, but the world demands more than our certainty. Let us consider the aftermath, the ripples of Eleanor's death, and how they may yet trap the guilty." Sir Henry's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "The aftermath, eh? You're thinking beyond the dining room, Miss Marple. Lay it out for us. What happens in Danemouth, and how do we catch Philip in his own web?" He settled back, his hands clasped, ready to absorb her final insights. Miss Marple leaned forward slightly, her shawl slipping, her tone measured yet vivid. The dining room at Greystone Hall was the stage, but the play continues beyond its walls. Philip Grayson sits now in a house of mourning, his wife's fortune his grief a mask for the world. Yet masks in time slip. In St. Mary Mead, a man who cheated his neighbour wore his piety proudly, but his haste to spend his gains betrayed him. Philip's betrayal is hidden, but his actions, his choices, will speak louder than his words. Let us imagine Danemouth, Sir Henry, and the days that follow Eleanor's death. She paused, her eyes distant, as if seeing the coastal town in her mind's eye. The police, stirred by our discussion, will watch Philip closely. They have no vial, no powder, no witness to his sleight of hand, but they have suspicion, and suspicion is a seed. They will search again, not just Greystone Hall, but Philip's London chambers, his legal papers, his travels. A barrister's life is not a closed book. It leaves traces, letters, receipts, meetings with men who deal in shadows. Strychnine, though rare, has a trail, and a man who procures it, even years before, may leave a footprint. Joyce's eyes widened, her voice trembling with excitement. "A footprint? You mean a chemist or a client? Someone who sold him the poison? Will the police find it?" Dr. Haydock nodded, his medical mind engaged. "Possible, but tricky. Strychnine's controlled, but not impossible to get. A medical contact, a legal case involving poison, even a garden pest remedy. If Philip got it, he'd cover his tracks. What's the police's next move, Miss Marple?" Miss Marple's fingers brushed her shawl, her mind weaving patterns. "The police, Dr. Haydock, will do what they do best. Observe. In St. Mary Mead, our constable followed a poacher not to catch him stealing, but to see where he sold his game. Philip's life is now his trap. His fortune, swollen by Eleanor's inheritance, will tempt him to act, to buy a new house, to travel, to court Clara Wentworth openly. Each step he takes will draw eyes, and eyes see what hands conceal. And recul, police will question his colleagues, his clerks, his chemist in London, discreetly but thoroughly. Mrs. Price's voice was stern, her disapproval unwavering. Caught that widow so soon! It's indecent! If he dares, it's proof of his guilt. Sir Henry's tone grew thoughtful. Indecent, yes, but not evidence. The police need more. A witness, a slip, something tangible. You're saying Philip will betray himself, Miss Marple. How? Miss Marple's eyes gleamed, her tone soft yet piercing. By being human, Sir Henry. In St. Mary Mead, a thief who stole from the church plate grew bold, flaunting his new coat until a seamstress recognized the cloth. Philip's crime was bold, but his heart is not stone. He will move too quickly or too slowly. He will speak too much or too little. The police must watch his silences, his glances at Clara, his handling of Eleanor's wealth, his answers when pressed. A man who poisons his wife carries a weight, and that weight bends him in time. Joyce shivered, her imagination alight. It's like he's haunted. Eleanor's death following him in every step, every word. Will Clara suspect him, Miss Marple? Miss Marple's expression grew thoughtful. Clara Wentworth is a woman of ambition, not sentiment. She may not suspect, but she will watch, as a cat watches a bird. If Philip courts her, she will weigh his fortune against his risk. In St. Mary Mead, a widow once married a man for his land, only to leave when his debts surfaced. Clara's charm is her shield, but her silence may be Philip's undoing. The police should speak to her again, gently, to see what she does not say. Dr. Haydock rubbed his chin, his scepticism tempered by intrigue. Clara as a witness, not a conspirator? That's a twist. But the servants, Miss Marple, Mrs. Bates, Lily, Harrow, could they know something even now? Miss Marple nodded, her tone gentle but firm. They know more than they think, Dr. Haydock. Lily's fear, trembling as she served, may hide a memory. A glance, a pause, Philip's hand too near the bowl. Mrs. Bates, protective of her master, may recall a moment when Philip entered her kitchen, asking about the soup. Harrow, silent and loyal, may have seen his master's eyes, too steady, too calm. The police must question them again, not as suspects, but as mirrors of the truth. Mrs. Price's voice was solemn, her hands clasped tightly. Mirrors, indeed. But if they're loyal, they'll shield him as servants often do. Miss Marple's smile was faint, almost wistful. Loyalty, Mrs. Price, is a double-edged blade. It blinds, but it also binds. In St. Mary Mead, a butler kept his master's secret until a child's question made him speak. The police must be patient, asking not for guilt, but for details. The napkins fold, the wines pour, the master's voice. Small things like pebbles can start an avalanche. Sir Henry leaned forward, his voice low. You're painting a long game, Miss Marple. The police watching, waiting, gathering pebbles. But what if Philip's too clever? A barrister trained to sway, to hide. What if he slipped through? Miss Marple's eyes gleamed in the firelight, her tone soft yet certain. No one slips through life, Sir Henry. In St. Mary Mead, a liar who fooled the village for years, was caught when he boasted to a stranger. Philip's cleverness is his strength, but also his snare. He will act, perhaps to sell Greystone Hall, to join Clara in London, to silence a servant with a gift or a threat. Each act is a thread, and the police, with our guidance, will pull it. Joyce's eyes sparkled, her voice bright. It's like a tapestry unravelling. The police will follow him, won't they? To London, to Clara, to his own doom. Dr. Haydock grunted, his medical mind wrestling with practicality. Following's one thing, catching's another. Without a vial, a witness, or a confession, it's all circumstantial. What's the spark, Miss Marple? The thing that breaks him? Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her, her tone musing. The spark, Dr. Haydock, is time. Philip's crime was a moment, but his life is a chain. In St. Mary Mead, a poacher's wife kept his secret until a neighbour's kindness loosened her tongue. The police must be kind, persistent, circling Philip's world, his bank, his cases, his servants' whispers. They must ask Clara about Philip's plans, Lily about his habits, Harrow about his silences. Somewhere a word will slip, a letter will surface, a chemist will recall a sale, time and truth will find him. Mrs. Price nodded, her voice solemn. Time, yes, but justice must be swift. A man who poisons his wife should not walk free. Miss Marple's expression grew sombre, her eyes softening. Swift or slow, Mrs. Price, justice is not ours to wield. Our task is to see clearly, to light the path. In St. Mary Mead, I've seen guilt weigh heavier than any chain. Philip carries Eleanor's death, and it will mark him in his sleep, in his smiles, in his haste to live free. Sir Henry's smile broadened, his voice warm. You've lit the path, Miss Marple, brighter than any chandelier. I'll take this to the Danemouth police. Your solution, your clues, your faith in time. They'll watch Philip, search his shadows, and, I wager, find the thread that unravels him. Joyce clapped her hands, her voice bright. It's perfect, like a story, but real, and you're the hero, Miss Marple. Dr. Haydock chuckled. His scepticism softened. Hero or not, you've outdone us all. I'd hate to be Philip Grayson, with you on his trail. Miss Marple leaned back, her shawl settling around her, her eyes gleaming in the firelight. A hero, Miss Lempriere? No, only an old spinster with a fondness for people and their ways. In St. Mary Mead, I've learned that truth is a quiet thing, found in the small moments. A napkin's fold, a wife's trust, a husband's choice. Danemouth will find its truth, and Philip Grayson will face his shadow. The fire crackled, its light dancing on the walls. The Tuesday night club sat in hushed awe. The aftermath of Eleanor Grayson's death, now a vivid tapestry in their minds. A husband's crime, a town's suspicion, a truth waiting to emerge. Miss Marple's quiet wisdom anchored them, a beacon in the fog of human deceit, as the mystery of Greystone Hall closed with the promise of justice yet to come. She picked up her knitting, her needles clicking softly, a gentle rhythm that seemed to echo the patient pulse of truth itself.